The Wise Man's Crown, or, The Glory of the Rosy Cross. Showing the wonderful power of nature, with the full discovery of the true Coelum Terrae, or first matter of metals, and their preparations into incredible medicines or elixirs that cure all diseases in young or old, with the Regio Lucis, and holy household of Rosicrucian philosophers. Communicated to the world by John Heydon, Gent. A servant of God, and secretary to nature. Non-Latin, i.e. He that looketh upon my books, let him learn to be religious. London, printed for the author, and are to be sold by Samuel Speed at the Rainbow in Fleet Street. 1664. The Life of John Heydon, the son of Francis and Mary Heydon, now of Sidmouth in Devonshire. John Heydon is not basely but nobly descended. The antiquaries derive them from Julius Heydon, the king of Hungary and Westphalia, that were descended from that noble family of Caesar Heydon in Rome, and since in this royal race the line run down to the Honourable Senior Christopher Heydon of Heydon near Northwich, Senior John Heydon, late Lord Lieutenant of the King's Tower of London, and the noble Chandlers in Worcestershire of the mother's side, which line spread by marriage into Devonshire. Among the Collins, Ducks, Drews and Bears, he had one sister named Anne Heydon, who died 2 years since, his father and mother being yet living. He was born at his father's house in Green Arbour, London, and baptized at St. Sepulchres, and so was his sister, and both in the 5th and 7th years of the reign of King Charles I. He was educated in Warwickshire among his mother's friends, and so careful were they to keep him and his sister from danger and to their books, that they had one continually to wait upon them, both to the school and at home. He was commended by Mr. John Dennis, his tutor in Tardibic, to Mr. George Linacre, priest of Coton, where he learned the Latine and Greek tongues. The war at this time began to molest the universities of this nation. He was then articled to Mr. Mike Petley, an attorney of Clifford's Inn, with £80, that at 5 years' end he should be sworn before Chief Justice Roll. Now being very young he applied his mind to learning, and by his happy wit obtained great knowledge in all arts and sciences. Afterwards also he followed the armies of the king, and for his valour commanded in the troops. When he was by these means famous for learning and arms, he travelled into Spain, Italy, Arabia, Egypt and Persia, and gave his mind to writing, and composed about 20 years since the Harmony of the World in 2 books, the Temple of Wisdom in 3 books, the Holy Guide in 6 books, Elevariuna in 1 book, Hampania Hamigulae in 1 book, Otia Imperialia in 1 book, The Idea of the Law, The Idea of Government, The Idea of Tyranny in 3 parts, The Fundamental Elements of Moral Philosophy, Policy, Government and War, and c. These books were written near 20 years since, and preserved by the good hand of God in the custody of Mr. Thomas Heydon, Senior John Hanmer, Senior Ralph Freeman, and Senior Richard Temple during the tyrant's time. First one had the books, then another, and c. And at last at the command of these honourable, learned, and valiant knights they were printed. He wrote many excellent things, and performed many rare experiments in the arts of astromancy and geomancy and c. But especially 81, the first upon the king's death, predicted in Arabia by him to his friends, the second upon the losses of the king at Worcester, predicted at Taris in Persia, the third predicted the death of Oliver Cromwell in Lambeth House to many persons of honour mentioned in his books, the fourth he wrote of the overthrow of Lambert, and of the Duke of Albemarle his bringing again of the king to his happy countries, and gave it to Major Christopher Birkenhead, a goldsmith, at the Anchor by Fetter Lane End in Holborn. The fifth precaution or prediction he gave to His Highness the Duke of Buckingham 2 months before the evil was practised, and his enemy Abraham Goodman lies now in the Tower for attempting the death of that noble prince. The sixth for Count Gramont when he was banished into England by the King of France, and he predicted by the art of astromancy and geomancy the king's receiving of him again into favour and of his marriage to the Lady Hamilton. The seventh for Duke Menelaus, a peer of Germany, that the emperor sent to him, when the Turk had an army against him, and of the death of the Pope. The rest are in his books, and therefore by these monuments the name of Heydon for his variety of learning was famous not only in England, but also in many other nations into which his books are translated. And it seems something difficult to determine, whether the sophistication of truth, or the fucus of errors hath of late years been the more epidemical cheat in print, it being sufficiently notorious how this generation of tailors' almanacs, the underwits go a-whoring after the press, and what a noisome spawn of brats are generated of the froth of illegitimate brains, not less numerous than spurious, that neither their male content parents nor religion, law, reason, nor charity are able to maintain. And although Mr. John Heydon's works be of a more generous extraction, yet they are very far from complimenting themselves with the least vain hopes of exemption from those censures which are common to all men. It is worth an asterisk to observe how infeasible it hath been in all ages for the most innocent to escape this correction. Divine Plato, that prince of philosophers, is accused for being too confused and immethodical. Virgil by some is counted but a shallow and weak-witted poet, and by others charged as if he were wholly beholding to Homer for his works, and Homer himself is derided by Horace, as if he were too drowsy a poet. Demosthenes could not please Marcus Tullius in all things. Trogus Pompeius doth accuse Titus Livius his orations of fictions and falsities. Seneca was nicknamed and called lime without sand. Pliny is compared to a turbulent river that tastes of many things but digests few. Hermes is called by some the Dark King. Some Orpheum Zoroaster had no depth of judgment. An astrological tailor accuses Cornelius Agrippa KT. John Heydon, Apollonius, and Tritemius of inventing new and strange principles in philosophy. D. Brown is reproved for inconstancy and instability of judgment, and Mr. Moore and Eugenius Philalethes for their too much subtlety in some things. Mr. Hobbes is thought too full of reason in his religion, and the Lord Verulam is taxed for the length of learning. Paracelsus is envied for hard words. Sir Kenelm Digby is censured by Toe. Vaughan Drive. Barlow for his tedious distinctions, Descartes for the perplexity of his method, and in a word these very learned and most excellent philosophers, physicians and divines, that by the profoundness of their judgment and splendour of their eloquence have so illustrated the three kingdoms as that they have left the world just cause of their admiration. No hopes of imitations, even these have not escaped the like misreprehensions, for in the late years, invectives have been written against these men. Yet who more learned than Sir Kenelm Digby, more eloquent than Dr. Barlow, who more witty than Mr. Moore and Eugenius Philalethes, who more acute than Mr. Hobbes, who more free and fluid than Lord Verulam, who more delightful and satisfactory than Gregory and Gaffarel, who more profound in philosophy than Henry Agrippa Knight, who more candid and ingenious than Roger Lestrange, who more clear and transparent than Paracelsus, who more distinct than Vincent Wing, and succinct than Drive. Wallace. Yet all these in their respective and incomparable works have met with the said undue reprehensions. If his works therefore shall chance to meet with some waspish humours, let him consider the climate, nor is it more than wants a president, or less than needs a charitable construction, which is the worst revenge can possibly be executed by such as choose rather to suffer than offend Mr. John Heydon. For the tailors amongst the almanac makers carpet all the rest and envy all. Amongst philosophers, Democritus laugheth at all things, Heraclitus weepeth at all things, Pyrrhus is ignorant of all things, and Plato knoweth all things. Diogenes contemns all things. This John Heydon fears none, contemneth none, is ignorant of none, rejoiceth in none, grieves at none, laughs at none, is angry with none. But being himself a philosopher, he hath taught the way to happiness, the way to long life, the way to health, the way to wane young being old, and the way to resolve all manner of questions, present and to come, by the rules of astromancy and geomancy, and how to raise the dead. He is a man of middle stature tending to tallness, a handsome straight body, an oval ruddy face mixed with a clear white, his hair of a dark flaxen brown colour, soft and curling in rings gently at the ends of the locks, his hands and fingers long and slender, his legs and feet well proportioned, so that to look upon he is a very complete gentleman. But he never yet cast affection on a woman, nor do I find him inclined to marry. He is very often in great ladies' chambers, and I believe his modest behaviour there makes them the more delighted in his company. The princes and peers not only of England, but of Spain, Italy, France and Germany, send daily to him, and upon every occasion he showeth strong parts, and a vigorous brain, his wishes and aims, and what he pointeth at, speak him owner of a noble and generous heart. This gentleman's excellent books are admired by the world of lettered men as the prodigy of these later times. Indeed his works before mentioned, if I am able to judge anything, are full of the profoundest learning I ever met withal, and I believe, who hath well read and digested them, will persuade himself, there is no truth so abstruse, nor hitherto conceived out of our reach, but man's wit may raise engines to scale and conquer. I assure myself he is owner of a solid head, and of a strong generous heart, and if any should question my judgment, they may read the commendations of both the universities, Oxford and Cambridge, besides the learned Thomas White and Thomas Revel, Esquire, both famous in Rome and other parts beyond sea, that have highly honoured this gentleman in their books, yet he hath suffered many misfortunes. His father was sequestered, imprisoned, and lost £2,000 by Cromwell. This Oliver imprisoned this son also 2 years and half or thereabout in Lambeth House, for he and his father's family were always for the king, and endeavoured to the utmost his restoration. And indeed the tyrant was cruel to him, but John Thurlow his secretary was kind to him, and pitied his curious youth, and Joshua Ledby to the messenger kept him, at his request and Mr. John Bradley's, at his own house, and gave him often leave to go abroad, but being yet zealous and active for the king, he was again taken and clapped up in Lambeth House. In these misfortunes it cost him 1,000 litres and upwards. After this some envious villains forged actions of debt against him, and put him in prison. It seems at the beginning of these misfortunes a certain harlot would have him to marry her, but denying her suit or that he ever promised any such thing, and that he never spake to her in his life good or evil, she devised with her confederates abundance of mischief against him. See him she did in some gentleman's company. Many courted him to marry but he denied. Now there was left, amongst a few old almanacs, and scraps of other men's wit, collected and bequeathed unto the world by Nick Culp, as his own admired experience, Alice Culpeper his widow, she hearing of this gentleman that he was an heir to a great fortune courts him by letters of love, to no purpose. The next saint in order was she that calls herself the German princess. But he flies high and scorns such foul, great beasts. The first of these two blessed birds in her lifetime caused one heath to arrest him, and another after him laid actions against him, that he never knew nor heard of. In this perplexity was he imprisoned 2 years, for they did desire nothing but to get money, or destroy him, for fear if ever he got his liberty he might then punish them. He being of a noble nature forgave them all their malice and devices against him, and scorns to revenge himself upon such pitiful things. God indeed hath done him the justice, for this heath consumes to worse than nothing, and indeed if I can judge or predict anything, his bawdy houses will be pawned and he will die a miserable diseased beggar. His mistress when he was very young and a clerk desired him to lie with her, but he like Joseph refusing, she hated him all her life. God preserved him from their malice. Although one of these 3 lewd women swore this gentleman practiced the art magic, she told Oliver Cromwell, she saw familiar spirits come and go to him in the shape of conies, and her maid swore she had often seen them in his chamber when he was abroad, and sometimes walking upon the house top in a moonshine night, and sometimes to vanish away into a war air, and yet she never saw him in her life, nor could she tell what manner of man he was. But these stories were not credited, and for all these and many more afflictions and false accusations, I never saw him angry, nor did he ever arrest or imprison any man or woman in all his life, yet no client of his was ever damnified in his suit. He was falsely accused but lately of writing a seditious book and imprisoned in a messenger's custody. But his noble friend the Duke of Buckingham, finding him innocent and always for the king, he was then discharged, and indeed this glorious Duke is a very good and just judge. And although some speak slightly of him, he studies the way to preserve his king and country in peace, plenty and prosperity. It is pity the king hath no more such brave men as he. 1,000 such wise dukes as this, like marshalled thunder, backed with flames of fire, would make all the enemies of the king and Christendom quake, and the Turca flee before such great generals. In all submission we humbly pray for this great prince, and leave him to his pleasure and return to our subject. John Heydon is not of that vain and presumptuous nature as the tailors that despise all artists, even Agrippa, Apollonius, More, Vaughan and Tritemius. And yet they cannot read these and many other learned authors they so impudently abuse, rob of their learning, and convert other men's parts to their own profit. He lent one £10 in gold, he in requital or return speaks ill of him, and pretends to know many admirable rules of geomancy and impertinently adds them to nativities, and applies them to all manner of questions in astromancy, but his books being written so long since, viz. near 20 years by himself, their greediness of great matters is discovered, and we now know them to be neither scholars nor gentlemen. These hang up clouts with here are nativities calculated, questions resolved, and all the parts of astrology taught by us, for 3d, 4d, 6d, or higher if you please. Thus are young apprentices, old women and wenches abused, and that they may be found, for money, they tell us the 12 houses of heaven in the sign of a coat of arms are to be let, when they might indeed set bills upon their brazen foreheads, engraven thus, Here are rooms to be let unfurnished, but our author regards not these men, all their scandals, forgeries and villainous devices they contrive against him, he slights and scorns, and hath purposely forsaken Spitalfields and his lodgings there to live a private life, free from the concourse of multitudes of people that daily followed after him. But if any desire to be advised, let them by way of letter leave their business at his booksellers, and they shall have answer and counsel without reward, for he is neither envious nor enemy to any man. What I write is upon my own knowledge. He writes now from Hermopolis, a place I was never at, it seems by the word to be the city of Mercury, and truly he hath been in many strange places, among the Rosicrucians and at their castles, holy houses, temples, sepulchres, sacrifices. All the world knows this gentleman studies honorable and honest things, and faithfully communicates them to others, yet if any traduce him hereafter they must not expect his vindication, he hath referred his quarrel to the God of nature. It is involved in the concernments of his truths, and he is satisfied with the peace of a good conscience. He hath been misinterpreted in his writing with studied calumnies, they disparage his person whom they never saw nor perhaps will see. He is resolved for the future to suffer, for he says, God condemns no man, for his patience. The world indeed may think the truth overthrown, because she is attended with his peace, for in the judgment of most men, where there is no noise, there is no victory. This he looks upon as no disadvantage, the estimate of such censures will but lighten the scales, and I dare suppose them very weak brains, who conceives the truth sinks because it outweighs them. As for tempestuous outcries, when they want their motives they discover an irreligious spirit, one that hath more of the hurry eno than of Christ Jesus. God was not in the wind that rent the rocks in pieces, nor in the earthquake and fire at Horeb. He was in aura tenue, in the still small voice. His enemies are forced to praise his virtue, and his friends are sorry he hath not £10,000 a year. He doth not resent the common spleen, who writes the truth of God hath the same patron with the truth itself, and when the world shall submit to the general tribunal, he will find his advocate where they shall find their judge. There is mutual testimony between God and his servants, or nature and her secretary, if the Baptist did bear witness of Christ. Christ did also as much for the Baptist. He was a burning and a shining light. When I write this gentleman's life, God can bear me witness it was unknown to him and for no private ends, but I was forced to it by a strong admiration of the mystery and majesty of nature written by this servant of God and secretary of nature. I began his life some years since, and do set it down as I do find it. If any man oppose this, I shall answer, if you are for peace, peace be with you, if you are for war. I have been so too. Mr. Heydon doth resolve never to draw sword again in England, except the king command him. Now let not him that puts on the armour boast like him that puts it off. Gaudet patientia teres is his motto, and thus I present myself a friend to all artists, and enemy to no man. Frederick Talbot, Esquire. March 3, 1662/3. To the most excellently accomplished, the truly honourable, learned, wise, virtuous, and C. Bevis Lloyd, Esquire. Eternal health be wished. I would have you know, that I love and honour you beyond expression, and shall serve you in art and nature to my power. I have presumed to make you one in the number of my noble patrons, because I hear the wickedness of some pulpit politicians incessantly raging against my person, which they never saw, nor perhaps will see. These sophistical sycophants contend against me continually with bitter hatred, envy and malice. Without any provocation on my part, one very proudly with a full mouth and loud voice aspersed me with atheism in St. Paul's Church in his morning sermon the 8th of May, before the Lord Mayor and others, amongst a promiscuous people, railing against the Rosicrucians, who art and nature united. Others in coffee discourse and stinking smoke of tobacco did fill the ears of the ignorant, with my infamy. Others in public and private assemblies. I here do instigate the dukes, princes and peers of England, and see against me, but my religion being published. I would have you know my philosophy is to know God himself, the worker of all things, and to pass into him by a whole image of likeness, as by an essential contract and bond, whereby we may be transformed and made as God, as the Lord spake concerning Moses, saying, I have made thee the God of Pharaoh. This is the true Rosicrucian philosophy of wonderful works, that they understand not. The key thereof is the intellect. For by how much higher things we understand, with so much the sublimer virtues are we endowed, and so much greater things do work, and that more easily and efficaciously. But our intellect being included in the corruptible flesh, unless it shall exceed the way of the flesh and obtain a proper nature, cannot be united to these virtues, for like to like, and is in searching into the Rosicrucian secrets of God and nature altogether inefficacious, for it is no easy thing for us to ascend to the heavens. For how shall he that hath lost himself in moral dust and ashes find God? How shall he apprehend spiritual things that is swallowed up in flesh and blood? Can man see God and live? What fruit shall a grain of corn bear if it be not first dead? For we must die, I say die to the world, and to the flesh, and all senses and to the whole man animal, who would enter into these closets of secrets, not because the body is separated from the soul, but because the soul leaves the body, of which death St. Paul wrote, to the Colossians, ye are dead and your life is hid with Christ. And elsewhere he speaks more clearly of himself, I know a man, whether in the body or out of the body I cannot tell, God knows, caught up unto the third heaven and sea. I say by this death precious in the sight of God we must die, which happens to few, and not always, for very few whom God loves, and are virtuous are made so happy. And first those that are born, not of flesh and blood, but of God. Secondly those that are dignified by the blessed assistance of angels and genii, the power of nature, influence of planets, and the heavens and virtues of the figures and ideas at their birth. Now this I humbly entreat you, that you be not mistaken concerning me, as if I at any time having received such divine things should boast of them to you, or should arrogate any such thing to myself, or could hope to have them granted to me. Although I have hitherto kept myself unmarried and free from the company of a woman, yet I have been a soldier following the armies of the king, and in other countries consecrated with man's blood, and exposed to all the blasts of inconstant fortune, and being crossed in my flesh in the world and worldly affairs, and therefore could not obtain the sublime gifts of the immortal God. But I would be accounted a director, who always waiting at the doors shows to others which way they must go, and here I present myself your most humble servant and honourer. May the 9th. 1664 Luna. 5 hours AM. John Heydon. An apologue for an epilogue. About the year 1648 we studied astronomancy and geomancy, and writ the harmony of the world in 2 books, the first printed for Mr. Brome with the Temple of Wisdom at his house in Ivy Lane, the Holy Guide, Elevariuna, being an introduction to the Rosicrucian philosophy, and diversely compiled in these books, in short words, yet sufficient for those who are wise. Some of these things are written methodically, some without order purposely, some things are delivered by fragments. Some things are even hid and left for the search of the wise, who more acutely contemplating these things which are written, and diligently searching, the harmony of the world, the Temple of Wisdom, and the Holy Guide, may obtain the complete rudiments of the Rosicrucian philosophy and also infallible experiments. And if you desire to study these books, keep silence and constantly conceal within the secret closet of your religious breast so holy a determination, for, as Taphthatherat saith, to publish to the knowledge of many an art wholly filled with so great majesty of the deity, is a sign of an irreligious spirit, and divine Plato commanded that holy and secret mysteries should not be made public to the people. Pythagoras and Porphyry consecrated their followers to a religious silence. The Rosicrucians, with a certain terrible authority of religion, do exact an oath of silence from those they initiate to the arts of astromancy, geomancy and telesmatical images, because by them the dead are raised to life. By them they alter, change and amend bodies, cure the diseased, prolong life, preserve health, renew youth in old folk, make dwarfs grow great men, make fools and madmen wise and virtuous, destroy the power of wretches. By these arts they make men fortunate in play, lawsuits, love, victory over enemies, in horse races, in gaming, in merchandise and at sea, silencing the violent waves. By these arts they know all things and resolve all manner of questions present or to come, as saith Peter. You that admirers are of virtue, stay, consider well what I to you shall say. But you, that sacred laws contemn, profane, away from hence, return no more again. But thou, O my Eugenius, whose mind is high, observe my words and read them with thine eye, and them within thy sacred breast rep one. And in thy journey think of God alone, the author of all things that cannot die, of whom we now shall treat. And ingenious the Odidactus proclaims, Vita pulchra comes, hence, hence, all ye profane. Theododatus cries, and from her grove refrain. Now in celebrating the holy mysteries of Hester Heaton, and Beta Pulchra they only were admitted to be initiated, Eugenius Theodidactus proclaiming the profane vulgar to depart. Of these goddesses you may read at large in our Temple of Wisdom. In Esdras we read this precept concerning the Kabbalistical secret of the Hebrews declared in these verses, Thou shalt deliver those books to the wise men of the people, whose hearts thou knowest can comprehend them and keep those secrets. In the Temple of Wisdom you see obscure figures of astromancy and geomancy, whereunto is added the alphabet of angels or writing and language of Haven, affording compendious words partly by stars, characters set in manner of a wheel thick, the reading thereby being defended from the curiosity of the profane. Therefore my worthy Charles in this science be silent, and hide those things which are secret in religion. For the promise of silence is due to religion as Tertullian affirms, but they which do otherwise are in great danger. Now concerning these secrets my ingenious disciples, I would tell you, if it were lawful to tell you, you should know all, if it were lawful to hear it, but both ears and tongue would contract the same guilt of rash curiosity, the divine goddess. Hester Heydon sings in those verses the power of God. The heavens Jove's royal palace, he's king. Fountain virtue and god of everything. He is omnipotent, and in his breast earth, water, fire, and air do take their rest. Both night and day, true wisdom with sweet love, are all contained in this vast bulk of Iove. His neck and glorious head if you would see. Behold the heavens high, and majesty. The glorious wreaths of stars do represent his golden lock, and's head adornment. And again she sings elsewhere to her friend Eugenius Theodidactus. Bright Phoebus and the moon, are the two eyes of this great Jove by which all things, he spies. His head which predicts all, is placed in thy sky, from which no noise can whisper secretly. It pierceth all, his body vast extends, both far and wide, and knows no bounds nor ends. The spacious air's his breath, his wings the wind, by which he flies far swifter than the mind. His belly is our mother earth, who swells into huge mountains, whom the ocean fills and circles. His feet are the rocks and stones, which of this globe are the foundations. This Jove under the earth conceals all things, and from the depth into the light them brings. This goddess commands secrecy, and Theodorus the tragic poet, when he would have reforced something of the mysteries of the Jews' scripture to the abhorred actions and deeds of harlots and villains upon the stage, was deprived of sight, and the journeyman traitors or tailors in their nativities, almanacs, and monthly predictions, verses and observations against their sacred majesties King Charles I and II and the Duke of Buckingham are now deprived of truth. And they cannot write or predict anything against this divine government, but lies. And my disciples concurred the displeasure of Beta Pulchra and Hester Heydon, because they interpreted the phenomena of nature, from the harmony of the world, the Temple of Wisdom, and the Holy Guide, and published them. They dreamed next that the goddesses Hester Heydon and Beta Pulchra stood in coarse habits before the brothel house, and they wrathfully answered their admiration, that they were by them violently drawn from their modesty and prostituted everywhere to all common, by which they are admonished that the ceremonies of the gods ought not to be divulged. Pythagoras, Socrates, Plato, Aristoxenus kept the mysteries of God and nature inviolable, but Plotinus, as Porphyry relates, broke the oath which he made to his master Ammonius, and published his mysteries. For the punishment of his transgression he was burnt with lightning, and consumed alive to his bones with lice. Our Saviour Christ also himself, while he lived on earth, spoke after that manner and fashion, that only the more intimate apostles should understand the mystery of the word of God, but the other should perceive the parables only, commanding moreover that holy things should not be given to dogs nor pearly cast to swine. I would also warn you, readers of the Harmony of the World, the Temple of Wisdom and the Holy Guide, that even as the divine powers detest public things and profane, and love secrecy, so every Rosicrucian experiment fleeth the public, seeks to be hid, is strengthened by silence but is destroyed by publication, neither doth any complete effect follow after all these things suffer loss, when they are powered into prating, and incredulous minds. Therefore it behoveth a philosopher, if he would get fruit from this art, to be secret, and to manifest to none, neither his work nor place, nor time, neither his desire nor will, unless either to a master or partner or companion, who ought also to be faithful, believing, silent, and dignified by nature and education, seeing that even the prating of a companion his incredulity and unworthiness hindereth and disturbeth the effect of every operation, we have now delivered this harmony of the world, the temple of wisdom and the holy guide, in such a manner, that it may not be hid from the prudent and intelligent, and yet may not admit wicked and incredulous men to the mysteries of the Rosicrucian philosophy, but leave them destitute and astonished, in the shade of ignorance and desperation. You therefore, sons of wisdom and learning, search diligently in the harmony of the world, the temple of wisdom and the holy guide, gathering together our dispersed intentions, which in divers places we have propounded, and what is hid in one place, we make manifest in another, that it may appear to you wise men. For you only have we written, whose mind is not corrupted but regulated according to the right order of living, unmarried, who in chastity and honesty, and in sound faith, fear and reverence of God, whose hands are free from sin and wickedness, whose manners are gentle, sober, and modest, you only shall find out this knowledge contained in the harmony of the world, the temple of wisdom and the holy guide, which is preserved for you. And the secrets which are hid by many enigmas cannot be perceived but by wise men, which when you shall obtain the whole science of the invincible Rosicrucian discipline will insinuate itself unto you, and these virtues will appear to you, which the Rosicrucians, who wrought miracles, obtained, but ye envious tailors or unworthy scorpionists, calumniators, sons of base ignorance, journeyman traitors, foolish writers of almanacs and other lewdness, that deceives them that trust him, railing downright and with studied lies disparages our person, that was so kind to them as to lend them £10 in gold, and bad lent them 100 litres. If we had not found them of an ungrateful ill nature, we scorn to speak how much our love was to the sending and giving great gifts. These in requital provoke men to anger, and quarrel, and pick words to advantage, and if any man invite them to fight, then beggarly coward-like run to law, and bring false witnesses to justify their deceitful devices, to get money. And so some of these astrologicals live, at this lewd rate, being not worthy of any regard. But saith the poet, since by thy late lost love, I have found out, thy friendships famed like the common rout, who prize men's worths at an unconstant rate, just as they see them raised or pressed by fate. When we look upon his natural parents, kindred, and relations, and consider his education, we indeed must give him his due title, i.e., a man that by his own industry and a little instruction, of an astrologer and ourself, hath obtained knowledge in astrology and geomancy, and can make an almanac and see. But he is so envious, scandalous, and malicious against others, that it clouds his better parts. The late years of tyranny admitted stocking weavers, shoemakers, millers, masons, carpenters, bricklayers, gunsmiths, porters, butlers, and to write and teach astrology and physic, and what a noisome spawn of brates, as Mr. Talbot calls them, are generated of the frothy brains of these illegitimate scribblers, that went a-whoring after the press, and railed against monarchy and all men, and cannot yet love one another. We forbid these to come nigh our writings, for they are your enemies, and stand out a precipice, that ye may err and fall headlong into misery. If any therefore through his incredulity or dullness of intellect doth not obtain his desire, let him not impute the fault of his ignorance to us, or say that we have erred, or written falsely and lied, but let him accuse himself, who understandeth not our writings, for they are obscure, and covered with divers mysteries, by the which it will easily happen, that many may err and lose their sense. Therefore let no man be angry with us, for we are envious against no man, but have folded up the truth of this science with many enigmas, and dispersed it in divers places. For we have not hidden it from the wise but from the wicked and ungodly, and have delivered it in such words which necessarily blind the foolish, and easily may admit the wise to the understanding of them, thus being willing to teach any ingenuous man form our virgin palace in Hermiopolis. May 3 1664. John Heydon. To the most accomplished philosopher and learned secretary of nature, Mr. John Heydon, on his Elevariuna, or Hamagule Hamponia. The harmony of the world, the temple of wisdom, the holy guide, Cur Imperialia, the idea of the law, and his other admirable works written about 17 years since, that are now published. Now the wits do sally, and attempt your guard. How your busy brain doth beat and ward, rally and reinforce, rout and relieve, double reserves, and then an onset give, like martial thunder backed with flames of fire, storms mixed with storms, passion with globes of ire, yet so well disciplined that judgment still swarmied, and not rashed commissionated will. No, words in you no order, time, and place, the instant of a charge, or when to face, when to pursue advantage and where to halt, when to draw off, and where to reassault. Such sure commands streams from you that 'tis one with you to vanquish as to look upon, so that your ruined foes grovelling confess. Your conquests were their fate and happiness, nor was it here your business to war with foreign artists, but thy active star doth course a home-bred mist, astrology, and show its guilt's degrees, wherein a lie. How simple men abuse it, and geomancy, I challenge all against them can say. Sentence expel them, and let your sun an everlasting stage in honor run, by that its motion to the ye of man wave still in a completer meridian. March 25, 1664. At 10 a.m. Sir Keppel Drew Baronet. To the admirable philosopher and lawyer Mr. John Heydon. This is no wanton gallant that lies angling for babies in his mistress's eyes, and think there's no heaven like a bale of dice, 6 horses and a coach with a device, a cast of lacquers, and a lady bird, an oath in fashion and a gilded sword, that smoke tobacco with a face in frame, and speak perhaps a line of sense to thy same, that sleeps a Sabbath over in his bed, and if his play books there will stoop to read, doth kiss its hand, and congeal our mode, and when the night's approaching bolt abroad, unless his honour's worship's rents not come, so he falls sick, and swears the carrier home, else if his rare devotion swell so high, to wast an hourglass on divinity, 'tis but to make the church his stage, thereby to blaze the tailor in his ribaldry. Ask but the parrot when his distress shall fall, like an armed man upon him, where are all those rosebuds of his youth, those antique toys, wherein he sported out his precious days, what comfort he collects from hawk or hound, or if amongst his looser hours he found one of 1,000 to redeem that time perished, and lost for ever in his prime, or if he dreamed of an eternal bliss, and swears God damn him he ne'er thought of this, but like the epicure adored the day that shined rose up to eat and drink and play. The more sprightly element of pure fire above that gallant doth advance this higher, this author's noble, great, and wise. His soul aloft doth soar above the skies to God himself, and what's to come he knows, so to prevent impendent dangers shows. Sure Jove descended in a leaden shower to get his Perseus, hence the fatal power of tailors' almanacs, planets thus allied. Fear to commit an art of parricide. Go on, brave sir, and let the world confess you are the greater world, and that the less. Thomas Revel, Esquire. To his most honoured friend Mr. John Heydon upon his most excellent philosophy. Here is philosophy, here you may read how long the world shall live, and when it shall bleed. Oh, how I am rapt when I contemplate thee, and wind myself above all that I see. Pardon, great sir, for the astrological crew. Gain, when made bankrupt in the scales with you, the spirit of your lines infuse a fire, like the world's soul, which makes me thus aspire, as he who in his character of light stilled God's shadow, made it fair more bright. By an eclipse so glorious, light is dim, and a black nothing when compared to him. So 'tis illustrious to be Heydon's fool, and a just trophy to be made his spoil. He spans the heaven and earth, and things above, and which is more join natures with their Jove. He's proof against thy artillery of verses, whom neither bilbo, nor invention pierces. You're sure enchanted, sir, you're double free from astrologers and their squibbed poetry. For a new east beyond the stars I see, where breaks the day of thy divinity. He makes me earth, now a star and then a spirit, now a star and earth again. He crowns my soul with fire and there doth shine, but like the rainbow in a cloud of mine. Who sees this fire without his mask, his eye must need be swallowed by the light and die. August 4th at sunset 1663. Charles Potter Esquire. To the most accomplished philosopher and learned secretary of nature, Mr. John Heydon on his Elevariuna, or Hamagule Hamponia. The harmony of the world, the temple of wisdom, the holy guide. The idea of the law. Most learned sir, it rather were my part. At distance to admire not here insert. These rustic lines, which merit cannot raise. What mortals able to set out thy praise? The deities inexplicable, so are you. All that you write we must confess is true. Unless we have chimeras in our brain. And what we do not know is false maintain. We may deny Rome is, Persia doth stand. Say Euphrates no river, Africa no land. Though curious you, have from those places come. Whilst we our ignorance do hug at home, the world and all therein you know so well, the great cabals of heaven and acts of hell, that we may safely affirm if that you please, you can another world make with much ease. All that Dame Nature has, you know and more, for she to make you rich is now grown poor. All that I fear, the fates will call you hence. Nature depose, and place you on her bench. Your knowledge is so great it may control more worlds than one, and all your wit can rule. March 26 H.O. H40p. M 1664. Thomas Tilione, a philosopher by fire, to the Duke of Buckingham. To his loving ingenious friend Mr. John Heydon upon his harmony of the world, temple of wisdom, and holy guide and see. Mr. Careless phrase and words that lie neglected. This virtue have, that they'll not be suspected. Others may overpraise your book, for we, the best things often overrated see. So what I write will equidistant lie from polished wit, and servile flattery. Bees from a bruised ox, says Marrow, breed. But you draw honey from a tattered weed. Note. An envious almanac makers his deceitful enemy, Mars, in Mercury, who borrowed of you gold, yet doth complain much of poverty, whose empty brain measures the slow part planets by the glass. And when thy nativity's done its poor alas, but now the ventricles of your pregnant brain give birth to a brave man issues without pain. Seeing your wits so pure, your phrase so clean, your sense so weighty that each line's a chain of gold twixt Jupiter his male and the gods, Mercury and Mars that are now at odds. Your book, like a young true-born eagle may behold the sun in public at noonday. Colton, May 13th, 8 hours. 30. Aim die. Frederick Talbot Esquire. To his honoured friend Mr. John Heydon on his most excellent principles of philosophy, in the harmony of the world, the temple of wisdom, the holy guide, Hamagule Hamponia, Elevariuna, Otia Imperialia and the idea of the lav, all written near 17 years since, and by God's providence now printed. Would you those pillars see, those relique, have ruins of time and knowledge, Seth did save from the impetuous sea, when waves were all, and all were waves within these pages small. You'll find them in their antient lustre shine, not counterfeit, but rich and masculine, or what Egyptian sages sometimes set in their papyrus books, rolls vastly great, whilst arts and letters were no common things, but priests and poets princes were and kings. Ere learning a ludibrium became, to the audacious rout, O hopeless shame, ere sacred page vulgar thumbs could soil, thence feeding black sedition's lamp with oil. Books, monuments of banished winds, do live, and, if from pure Minerva's born, survive. When titles, triumphs, arches name, become silent with ruins of a ruined tomb. When Scipio's, Pompey's, Caesar's laurels may, by long success of wasting years decay. Good books, eternal products of the brain, not only live but may grow fresh again. March 26, 1664. 8 hours 30 a.m. W. Smith, Master of Arts, of Clare Hall in Cambridge. A catalogue of those things contained in these books. First book. 1. The white elixir of quicksilver. 2. The white ferment. 3. The red elixir of mercury alone. 4. The red ferment. 5. The occultation of the red elixir. 6. The physical and alchemical tincture of the red lion and the glue of the eagle. Second book. 1. The elixir of copper. 2. Of augmentation and projection. 3. Of the blessed stone or elixir of life and of its virtues, and also of malleable glass. Third book. 1. The elixir of Saturn white and red, and also of Jupiter. 2. The abbreviation of the work of Saturn. 3. The elixir of Mars. 4. A short work of the physical and alchemical tincture. 5. The ministry of pearls. 6. The composition of carbuncles. 7. Of mineral electrum. 8. The explanation of the philosophers' words when they speak of the 10th number wherein the stone is perfected, and also the wonderful secrets of the animal stone with 2 other of his works. The Rosicrucian crown set with angels, planets and metals and sea. The first book. Chapter 1. 1. Of the gold mercury or argent vive. 2. Purification. 3. Sublimation. 4. Calcination. 5. Exuberation. 6. Solution. 7. Separation. 8. Conjunction. 9. Putrefaction into sulfur. 10. Fermentation. 11. Multiplication in virtue. 12. Multiplication in quantity. He that can make the stone of argent vive or mercury alone is the greatest searcher out of art and nature, because there is all that in mercury which wise men do seek. For quicksilver is the mother and sperm of all metals and their nearest matter, and it is not only a spirit but a body. It is also a middle nature and also a sulphur. It is a lingering mercury. It dieth and riseth again and is fixed with its own proper elements, wherefore it is first necessary that it be purged from its impurities. The purgation or purification is on this wise: grind it upon a marble with a muller or a wooden pestle in a wooden mortar with common salt and a little vinegar sprinkled thereupon till the salt be black, then wash it well with vinegar and dry it easily at the fire, or at the sun. Then strain it through a double cloth or a new skin of a sheep till it be dry and the vinegar clear taken away and be of a white color and clear. Grind it upon a marble with a little mercury, sublimate and let it mortify and incorporate with it, then grind it with its equal weight of saltpeter and green copperas till it be like a paste, then put all into a subliming glass and in ashes sublime all the mercury, that it be white and clear as snow in the head of the limbeck. Sublime it again 3 times or oftener and 2 will be pure mercury, and sublimate. Put 1 pound of this mercury, sublimate into 2 pound of common aqua fortis by little and little at once, as by 2 at a time, till all be dissolved like sugar in wine. Then shut the glass and set it in balneo to dissolve the space of 10 days. Then distill away the aqua fortis in a lenthiat in balneo, and the mercury will remain in the bottom like butter of a white color, and calcined by corrosive water. Put this calcined mercury into an earthen body with a limbeck, and in ashes sublime the whole dissolved substance 3 times, which will then be very white, and then it is called mercury exuberate. When you have 3 or 4 pound of this, receive the 3rd part and fix it by often sublimation till it remain in a hard mass and ascend no more but remain fixed, which is called the glue of the eagle or the prepared body permanent, and the volatile made fixed, which is to be reserved for the earth of the stone. Dissolve the other 2 parts in balneo or in a cold cellar, or put it in a blader and hang it over fuming hot water till it be all come to water. Take this water thus made, and digest it in a circulatory well closed the space of 9 days. Then put it in a body with a head and receiver well luted, and in ashes or balneo distill the water of a white color or milky, and is called lac virginis, dissolving all metals, and so you have separated the spirit of the stone, which is also called the lingering spirit, and the white tincture of the white stone of mercury. Take the 3rd part which before you reserved and fixed, called the glue of the eagle, as much of it as you please, and add thereto equal weight of its spirit or lac virginis, and close up the glass, and so you have joined the man and the woman, mercury, with his own earth, the spirit with the body. See the Holy Guide. Set your lac virginis thus joined with his own, each in balneo to putrine 150 days, and there let it stand unmoved. After 40 days it will be black, and it is then called the head of the crow, Then it will be of a green color, after that the peacock's tail, and many false colors, for between this and white it will appear red, but at last you shall see it white, and then increase your fire, and it will stick to the sides of the glass like fish's eyes. Then have you each in the nature of sulfur. Read the Holy Guide. Take of this sulfur as much as you please, and weigh it, and add thereto 2 parts of the white tincture or lac virginis, and set it in balneo to dissolve the space of 6 days. Then distill away the lac virginis or tincture, and the sulfur will remain in the form of liquor, for it is the liquor of the white sulfur of mercury, which is to be joined with the liquor of the sulfur of lunar or silver. The sulfur of the white luminary or silver or lunar is made as the other, whereof we shall speak more in the next branch. This liquor of the sulfur is the soul, which is joined with the spirit and body, which quickeneth the whole stone. The other conjunction before was only the union of the spirit and the body, but this is a threefold copulation, viz. the uniting of the soul, spirit, and body. Arder equal weight of these 2 liquors of sulfur, that is to say, the liquor of the sulfur of mercury and of silver and lunar, and close well the glass, and set it in ashes till it be white, for it will be of all colour again, and at last white, and then is it the perfect stone, converting all metals into silver. This stone or elixir is thus multiplied in virtue. Dissolve it in your lac virginis, and distill it away, and dry it, and dissolve it again, and see. And let it be so often dissolved and dried till it will dry no more, but remain in an incombustible oil, and is then elixir of the 3rd order. Take 1 part of this elixir and project it upon 100 or 1000 parts of melted silver, according to the goodness and virtue thereof, and it will turn the silver into a brittle mass or substance, which beat to powder in an iron or brass mortar, or upon a marble, and project 1 part of this powder upon 100 parts of mercury, purged, made hot, and it will be perfect medicine, whereof 1 part turneth 100 or 1000 parts of other bodies into good silver. And this way is your medicine multiplied in quantity. A corollary. It remaineth now that we speak of the medicine or the elixir of life, which is called potable silver. But although the liquor of silver may be made potable silver if it be corroborated before by digestion in balneo 7 days with the spirit of wine, and then distill away the said spirit of wine, that the oil of the silver may remain in the bottom, which may easily be given for medicine, yet the philosophers would have us do otherwise, for they teach us to bring the metals first into their quintessence before they be taken inwardly, and that there is no other quintessences but those that are of a second nature, according to the old saying, Elixir de te est res secunda. De quo sunt facta corpora munda. Elixir about you is the second thing, from which the bodies were made clean. That is to say, the 4 elements are destroyed, and by putrefaction a new body created and made into a stone, which is the quintessence as Ripley would have it. But I do boldly and constantly affirm that there is no true silver or potable silver nor quintessence unless it be first elixir, and that is done in a quarter of an hour by projection of the elixir upon silver or pure gold molten according as the elixir was red or white. If therefore you desire after the first composition of the elixir to make the arcanum of argentum or aurum potabile, project the elixir or medicine according to his quality or property upon pure silver or gold molten, and then it is made brittle and frangible, and grind it to powder, and take thereof so much as you please, and dissolve it in distilled vinegar, or rather in spirit of wine, the space of 9 days, then distill away the vinegar or spirit of wine. That which remaineth in the bottom is the true medicine, quintessence, elixir of life, ferment of ferments, and incombustible oil, converting metals and man's body into perfect health from all diseases of man's body which proceed from mercury and lunar. And thus is the true potable silver made, curing the vertigo, syncope, epilepsy, madness, francy, leprosy, and see. And this is the right way of making the stone of mercury alone, but the elixir cannot be made without the addition of silver to the white, and of gold to the red. Chapter 2. 1. Lunar. 2. Pure silver. 3. Calcination. 4. Solution. 5. Putrefaction. 6. The sulfur. 7. The liquor of the sulfur. 8. White ferment. Hermes saith, the elixir is nothing else but mercury, sol, and lunar. By mercury nothing is understood but the sulfur of nature, which is called the true mercury of the philosophers, and that sulfur gotten by putrefaction by the conjunction of the spirit, and of the body of imperfect bodies or metals. By sol is meant gold, by lunar silver, Both of them are to be joined to imperfect bodies, that is to say, white sulphurs and red, whence the same Hermes in his treatise of Sol saith there happeneth a conjunction of two bodies and it is necessary in our mystery, and if one of these bodies only were not in our stone it would never by any means give any tincture, upon which Morienius saith, for the ferment prepareth the imperfect body and converteth it to its own nature and there is no ferment but Sol and Luna, that is, gold and silver. Of which Rosinus Sol and Luna prepared, that is to say their sulphurs, are the ferments of metals in colour, see the Holy Guide. But this is made more evident by Raymund in his Apertory where he saith there is no ferment except Sol and Luna, for the ferment of the stone to white is silver and to the red gold, as the philosophers do demonstrate because without ferment there doth proceed neither gold nor silver nor anything else that is of its kind or nature, therefore join the ferment with its sulphur that it may beget its like, because the ferment draweth the sulphur to its own colour and nature also. And weight and sound because every like begetteth its like. Because the ferment even as Sol tingeth, and changeth his sulphur into a permanent and piercing medicine. Therefore the philosopher saith he that knoweth how to tinge sulphur and mercury with Sol and Luna, shall attain to the greatest secret. And for this reason it is necessary that Sol and Luna be the tincture and ferment thereof. You may read in the Holy Guide. And so also Arnoldus in his Rosary, there is no body more noble or pure than Sol, or his shadow that is to say silver without which no tinging mercury is generated. He that endeavoureth to give colour without this gold or silver goeth blindly to work like an ass to a harp, for gold giveth a golden and silver an argentive colour therefore he that knoweth how to tinge, mercury, with Sol and Luna cometh or reacheth to the secret which is called white sulphur, the best to silver which when it is made red, will be red sulphur to gold the best. Take pure Luna, that is to say silver that is best which is beaten into leaves and bring it into calx with mercury. And it is then called water silver then is the Luna well prepared for calcination. See the Holy Guide. When you have your silver thus prepared, take 4 or 6 ounces thereof, and put it in double proportions of lac virginese mixed with equal quantity of corrosive water to dissolve in an egg glass. After it hath dissolved so much as it can in the cold, set in balneo and there let it stand 9 days till the whole substance of the silver be dissolved into a green water, then let the balneo cool and take it out, and put the dissolution into the body and set thereon a head and distill of the water from the matter remaining which is the oil of the silver calcined not into a calx but a liquor, because this lac virginese if it be mixed or joined with common aqua fortis or alone without it, as it pleaseth the operator, is so strong that the very diamond cannot resist it but is dissolved, therefore this water is called the water of hell and is the only miracle of miracles of the world, because it containeth such a fiery nature in itself and propriety of burning of all bodies into liquor whereas the elemental fire prevaileth no further than to reduce metals into calx or ashes. But to return from whence we digressed I now come to the third operation. To the end therefore that this liquor or oil of silver may be more perfectly dissolved, and that all the imperfection of adustion may be taken away, which by the ancients is called the corroborating of the lest humidity. Put this oil or liquor into another egg glass like the former power thereupon so much spirit of wine above it 4 fingers then close well the glass and set it in balneo to digest 7 or 10 days and you shall find the oil or liquor turned into a thin or rare water oil, put this water into a still and in balneo draw away the spirit of wine till none of the spirit of wine remain with the silver dissolved. And thus have you your silver prepared for putrefaction. This liquor of silver is potable but not the quintessence. Put this water into a fit putrefying glass and seal it up and set it to putrefy in balneo till the time of putrefaction be past which is about 150 days, and when you see the first sign of putrefaction which is called the head of the crow increase your fire a little till all colours begin to appear and you see it begin to be white. When you see it white increase your fire yet more and it will rise up and stick to the sides of the glass most transparent like the eyes of fishes which is sulphur of nature or salt, or the putrefied body of the white luminary, viz. Luna, which yet is not so hard as a body nor so soft as a spirit but of a mean hardness between a spirit and a body, and is called the philosophers mercury and the K and mean of joining tinctures. But to come to the liquor of the white luminary, This body being brought into quintessence is prepared for dissolution like the sulfur of the imperfect body, but whereas that is done by the virtue of the white tincture or lac virginis, I rather do it by virtue of the fire natural, which is the spirit of wine, and after the drawing away thereof it remaineth in a liquor. Now this liquor of Luna dissolved is the quintessence, which then is the liquor of the white luminary, and the soul as Exinadius saith, quickening the whole stone, without which it is dead and will neither give form nor colour. Therefore the fourth part of this liquor of the white luminary is to be joined to 3 parts of the former liquor of the sulphur of mercury, and after to be kept in a lent fire of ashes well closed till it passe through all colours and at last come to its former colour of whiteness, and so the stone is fermented and turned into the white elixir. The residue of the foresaid dissolved sulphur keep diligently, and therewith ferment the white sulphur of other imperfect bodies or stones into elixirs, which when they are thrice dissolved and again congealed and remain in a liquid substance, then they are called incombustible oils and elixirs of the 3rd order. And thus the stone is made of mercury alone. A corollary. Having spoken of the white stone, it now resteth that we speak of the making of the red elixir, whereof there is 2 processes, the first whereof is from the radix, i.e. the long way, the other an occultation that is much shorter and more excellent, and this way the elixir may be made in 80 days and excels all other occultations, neither is there found therein any diminution of the virtue, but is a plentiful and perfect fullness of power and virtue, having all the properties which the elixir ought to have. The process whereof these 3 following chapters will plainly show. Chapter 3. 1. Vivum. 2. Sublimation. 3. Calcination. 4. Precipitation. 5. Solution. 6. Fixed oil. 7. Inceration. 8. Desiccation. 9. Contrition. 10. Fermentation. 11. The red elixir. 12. The 3rd table. It is not necessary to speak in this place of the ergation of mercury, because we spoke thereof before. The sublimation is to be done otherwise than in the former work, for that which is called sublimation here is not done with vitriol and saltpeter, but is only the distillation of the mercury in an earthen body with a limbec, and that by itself without any adilament. When the mercury is once sublimed in ashes wholly into the head of the limbec, having a retainer joined thereto, take off the head and with a feather gather the sublimed matter, and you shall find your mercury of a black colour, having lost his fairness, and like a dust or powder sticking to his body. Put it again into the body and sublime it as before, and reiterate this work 7 or 9 times until you have a sufficient quantity of this powder, that is to say a pound or more. And this is the calcination. When you see your mercury will ascend no more but remain in the bottom of a black colour, and that is dead and brought perfectly into calx, let it cool and remove your body into sand till it be turned into a red colour, and this is the perfect precipitation prose without the help of any corrosive water. Take a little of this powder upon a hot iron plate, if it fume, dry it longer, if not it is well. Take of this red powder as much as you will dissolve, and put thereupon at least his double weight of lac virginis, and set in balneo till you see your lac virginis stained a yellow or red colour, then filter it from its feces and keep it by itself in a glass well stopped, and dry the matter that remaineth in ashes, and pour thereon new lac virginis, and do as before till you have drawn out all the tincture. And so your mercury is dissolved. Put these solutions into a body luting to a head, and in balneo distill away the lac virginis, and the red oil precipitate will remain, which is fixed and needeth no distillation, but is the tinging oil of red mercury, and the red tincture of the red stone of mercury, and the soul and spirit of the same stone joined. Therefore take part of the white sulphur reserved in the 1st table, and rubify it in ashes till it be red, then imbile it with equal weight of the oil of the tincture of this red mercury, and set it to dissolve in balneo, and when you see it is dissolved into a liquid substance, take it out. Then set it in ashes or under the fire to fix, till the matter being dried remain fixed and fusible, standing in a mean heat, not over hot, which try upon a hot iron plate, and if it fume not it is well, if it do, increase your fire till it be totally fixed and dry. If this matter be imbibed again with its oil till it drink up as much as it will, and again dissolved in balneo and then dried in ashes, it will show many colours and lastly appeared. And then it is the stone penetrating and fusible, apt for form. Join this imbiled matter, or stone, with the fourth part of the liquor or oil of the red sulphur of gold or the red ferment, and dissolve it in balneo, and dry it again, and again dissolve it in a glass hanged in the fume of hot water or balneum, and congeal it again till it stand like honey, then it is the perfect red elixir of mercury. The multiplication or augmentation of the virtue and quantity is showed in the former chapter. Chapter 4. 1. Gold sol. 2. Purged gold. 3. Calcination. 4. Solution. 5. Putrefaction. 6. Filius salice colestis. 7. Filia lunae colestis. The putrefaction or purgation of gold is done as the goldsmith used to do by melting it with antimony, that the gold may remain in the bottom pure and clear from other metals which they call regulus. Take 4 or 5 ounces of this refined gold, leaf or filings, and dissolve it in lac virginis, mixed with equal weight of aqua fortis wherein salt ammoniac sublimed is dissolved, and when it is dissolved into a red liquor or deep yellow, then it is well calcined. The solution and putrefaction is done as before you did with silver in the preparation of the white ferment. When you have your white sulphur of nature, after putrefaction, sticking to the sides of the glass, let it cool, and take out your glass and set it in ashes, and increase your fire but not too much lest your matter vitrify, and let your ashes be no hotter than you can hold your hand therein, and so let it stand till the sulphur be of a perfect deep red color, then have you the red sulphur of the red luminary. If you resolve this red sulphur in spirit of wine or distilled vinegar into an oil, it is then the liquor of the red luminary, and aurum potabile, curing all infirmities if the spirit of wine or vinegar be distilled from it, but for this work it were better to dissolve it in our red lac eugenes spoken of in the 2nd chapter of the 2nd book, distill away the lac from the sulphur in ashes, and the sulphur remaining in an oil is the ferment of all stones to the red. The augmentation of this red elixir in virtue is with his red tincture as before in the white elixir with his white tincture. The augmentation in quantity is by projection upon the body of gold molten, and that brittle matter of gold upon mercury, and if it be powdered and resolved with spirit of wine in an oil as was said before of silver, then it is the quintessence of gold, and the great elixir of life and the spiritual ferment for the transmutation of metals and for the health of man's body. The 5th chapter showeth the abbreviation of the red elixir. Chapter 5. 1. The liquor of the red sulphur. 2. Fermentation. Although Raymund writing to King Robert was pleased to say, that every occultation diminisheth the perfection, because medicines which are made by occultation have less effect of transmutation, which I also assent to with him for a truth, if the work be begun from the first fountain, yet because this work hath its beginning from those things which before were brought to a perfect degree of perfection, therefore in this there is no diminution of the perfection, as the same Raymund witnesseth lib. Micur. Pag. 103. Saying thus, therefore it ought to be declared unto thee, that if they be both well prepared, and that thou begin with them, thou wilt do a wonderful work without any great labor sooner than if thou should begin with one thing alone. Therefore my son, begin thy work of 2 things together, as I showed to thee in the greater stone, when we spoke of the twofold custody of the actions which are caused by the bodies and spirits. By that which is caused by the bodies and spirits he means nothing else but sulphur, willing that we should begin with sulphur, to which I do so well agree that I begin this my occultation with sulphur alone, and I add no other body to this elixir but only the sulphur of mercury, alone created of his own body and spirit. Take therefore 2 ounces of the white sulphur that was described in the 1st chapter and set it in ashes to rubify, in 30 days it will be turned into red sulphur. Which when you have done, dissolve that sulphur in the red tincture of mercury. When it is dissolved, draw away the tincture, in the bottom remaineth the liquor of the sulphur. To which if you add a due proportion of the liquor of the red luminary it will be perfect ferment, which if you dissolve and congeal as before is showed, it is then elixir of very great virtue to the red work, and no man can make a shorter abbreviation in the world, and when the sulphur of any body is prepared it may this way very speedily be converted into elixir by adding the liquor of the ferment. Chapter 6. 1. The body. 2. The spirit. 3. The lion. 4. The eagle. 5. The philosopher's lead. 6. Antimony. 7. Antimony mercury. 8. The glue of the eagle. 9. Solution of the red lion into blood. 10. Solution of the glue of the eagle. 11. Solution of the blood of the red lion. 12. Conjunction. 13. Putrefaction. 14. The stone. 15. Fermentation. 16. In the trinity of the physical and alchemical tincture the soul. 17. Is the unity of the medicine. Take antimony calcined so much as you please, and grind it to a subtle powder, then take twice so much lac virginis and put your powder of antimony therein, and set it in balneo 7 days, then put it into a body, and set it in sand or ashes till the lac be turned red, which draw and pour more and so let it stand, when that is coloured red, pour it to the other and thus do till you have drawn out all the tincture set all this water in balneo or lent ashes to distill with a limbeck. And distill it with a lent fire and first of all the lac will ascend, then you shall see a stupendous miracle because you shall see through the nose of the alembic as it were 1,000 veins of the liquor of this blessed minna to descend in red drops just like blood, which when you have got thou hast a thing whereto all the treasure in the world is not equal. Now you have the blood of the lion according to Rupsissa, let us here rest a little and speak of the glue of the eagle. Of which Paracelsus thus saith. Reduce mercury so far by sublimation till it be a fixed crystal, this is his preparation of mercury and his way of reducing it into the glue of the eagle, but above all I require that that way be used which is described by me before in the first chapter, or that hereafter set down after this. Then saith the foresaid author, go on to resolution and coagulation, and I again will you to observe the same manner of solution showed in the first chapter before. Now let us come to conjunction after the solution of these two. Take equal weight of them and put them in a vessel well shut. After you have thus joined them together set your glass in your furnace to putrefy and alter the space of certain days. Therefore Paracelsus saith, then at length and presently after your lily is made hot in your glass it appeareth in wonderful manners, or demonstrations, blacker than the crow, after that in process of time whiter than the swan and then passing by yellow to be more red than blood. This being purified and turned into red is to be taken for the stone, and then it is time it be fermented. Of which fermentation Paracelsus thus speaketh, 1 part thereof is to be projected upon 1,000 parts of molten gold, and then the medicine is prepared and this is the fermentation of it. But if the half or 1 part of the liquor of the sulphur of gold before described be added to it then it would be spiritual ferment, and would be much more penetrating in fortitude and fusible as Paracelsus doth testify in his Aurora where he would have us to join the star of the sun or the oil of sol to this stone. And thus the physical alchemical tincture is performed in a short time for curing all manner of infirmities and humane diseases, which is also the great elixir for metals, so courtly concealed by the ancients. Which Hermes Trismegistus the Egyptian, Osus the Grecian, Haley an Arabian, and Albertus Magnus a German, with many others, have sought and prosecuted everyone after their own method, and one in one subject another in another, so much desired by the philosophers only for prolongation of life. In this composition mercury made a fixed and dissolved body, the blood or spirit of the red lion is the ferment or soul, and so of trinities made unity, which is called the physical and alchemical tincture. Never before that I knew of collected or written one work, and I swear, I had not done this except that otherwise the composition of this blessed medicine had forever been forgot. A shorter way to make the glue of the eagle. If you desire to make the glue of the eagle in a briefer way, take part of the red precipitate prose as is taught before in the table of mercury and dissolve it in distilled vinegar, and the vinegar will be colored into a yellow or delightful golden color, and after you have distilled away the vinegar there will remain in the bottom a white substance of the mercury fixed and fair, which is to be joined to the oil of the lion, and this work is much shorter and less laborious. Look more hereof in the 3rd book. The calcination of antimony into the red lion. Take antimony well ground so much as you please and melt it in naked fire with salt ammoniac, and when it is melted cast it suddenly into a vessel almost full of distilled vinegar wherein salt ammoniac hath been dissolved, and thus melt it and cast it in 3 times, then pour off the vinegar from the calx of the antimony and dry it well and grind it small and dissolve it as before is taught, and so have you the red lion of the philosopher's lead or antimony. Chapter 7. 1. Elixir. 2. Conjunction. 3. Separation. 4. The stone. 5. Fermentation. 6. The earth. 7. Spirit oil, blood of the Lamb. 8. Distillation. 9. Resolution. 10. Putrefaction. 11. Solution. 12. Vitriol. 13. Calcination. 14. Copper. The first chapter of the elixir of copper. Many have sought out the way of the mineral stone in vitriol or green copperas, but they were altogether received which common vitriol by the philosophers is called the green lion of fools. But this our noble red lion taketh its original from the metallic body of copper. Although I am not ignorant how to draw an oil out of Roman vitriol of a more sweet smell, and delightful taste than any balsam if the tincture be taken out of the calcined vitriol in spirit of wine, yet the philosophers will is, and command that it do consist of a metallic virtue, wherewith the transmutation of metals is to be effected. Therefore they say it is to be made of bodies and not of spirits, as of vitriol, sulphur as well, and the like. Whence I find it written in the Philosophers' Turba and in the first exercitation, but the philosopher's stone is a metallic matter converting the substances and forms of imperfect metals, and it is concluded by all the philosophers that the conversion is not made except by its like, therefore it is necessary that the philosopher's stone be made of a metallic matter, yet if any be made of spirits yet it would be better and much more philosophical and more near to a metallic nature to be made of bodies than of spirits. But if by art the body should be turned into a spirit, then the same body would be both body and spirit, and not to be doubled, but the stone might be made of such a body or spirit. But let us return to our purpose, it being granted that this our vitriol is such a body according to which Paracelsus testifieth in his Aurora Philosophorum under this Aenigura or secret of the Antient philosophers. Visicabis interiora terrae reclificando in venes. Occultum lapidem viram medicinum. You will discover the interior of the earth by reclining. The hidden stone of true medicine. Out of the first letter of every word of this Aenigura is gathered this word vitriolum, by which is meant that thereof the stone or medicine may be made. Therefore Paracelsus saith, the inward parts of the earth are to be visited, not only the earth which is vitriol, but the inward parts of the earth, he meaneth the sweetness and redness, because there lieth hid in the inward parts of vitriol a subtle noble and fragrant juice and pure oil. And this is especially to be noted, the production of this copper into vitriol is not to be done neither by calcination of the fire nor distillation of the matter, lest it be deprived of its greenness, which being lost it wants both power and strength. Paracelsus speaks not one word of the preparation of this vitriol, by whose silence many have erred, therefore I determined to leave him here a little, and to prosecute and follow the order of the table, wherefore, begin with the calcination of the metal. And note that this calcination of copper is made that it may be turned into vitriol, and not the calcination of vitriol made of copper. Take therefore as much copper as you please and dissolve, calcination it in aqua fortis to a fair green water, then set it 3 or 4 days to digest till the matter be clear, which pour out into a limbec, and in balneo draw away the corrosive water so that the matter remain dry, for then it is calcined. Then upon every 2 pound of this calcined matter pour a gallon of distilled vinegar and lute it up in a glass, and set it in balneo almost boiling the space of 7 days, when it is cold put into a limbec to distill away all the vinegar in balneo, and in the bottom of the alembec you shall have your vitriol very well congealed, far fairer than Roman vitriol, which is corporeal, and metallic vitriol. Which vitriol I do not dissolve in rainwater like the Paracelsians, but rather with lac virginis, as before is taught in the former chapters, or in Raymund's calcination water, and after its dissolution and perfect digestion, that is to say 15 days, I put it into a limbec and balneo draw off the lac virginis, which being done you shall find an oily water green and clear, upon which pour the spirit of wine, and after it hath been digested 7 days and the spirit of wine distilled away in balneo, you shall find your green water perfectly rectified, made pure, subtle and spiritual, and apt for putrefaction, for if it be not well dissolved and rarefied it will not putrefy. But now that I may join with Paracelsus in the manner of putrefaction, I return to him and say with him, commanding to digest in a warm heat in a glass well closed the space of some months, and so long till diverse colours appear and be at length red, which showeth the termination of its putrefaction. But yet in this process this redness is not sufficiently fixed, but is to be more fully purged from its feces in this manner. Resolve it or rectify it in distilled vinegar, till the vinegar be coloured, then filler it from its feces. This is its true tincture and best resolution and rectification, out of which a blessed oil is to be drawn. This tincture being thus resolved and rectified, is to be put into a body with a limbec, and in balneo distill the vinegar gently away. Then in sand or ashes lift up the spirit gently and temperately, and when you see a fume ascend into the glass and red drops begin to fall out of the nose of the limbec into the receiver, then the red oil beginneth to distill. Continue your distillation till all be come over. When it is done, you shall have the oil in the receiver lifted up and separated from its earth, more delightful and sweet than any balsam, or aromatic without any sharpness at all, which oil is called the blood of the Lamb. In the bottom of the body you shall find a white shining earth like snow, which keep well from dust, and so you have the clear earth separated from its oil. Take this white earth and put it in a glass vial, and put thereto equal weight of the oil, or soul and body, will receive it and embrace it in a moment. But that it may be turned into a stone when you have joined these two together, set it into our furnace the space of 40 days, and you shall have an absolute oil of wonderful perfection, wherewith mercury and other imperfect metals are turned into gold. As Paracelsus was pleased to say, the stone being thus made, I now come to the fermentation, without which it is not possible to give form to it, neither will I adhere to the opinion of one man alone, contrary to all the philosophers alone, that is to say, Paracelsus repugnant to the rest of the philosophers, because they all of necessity have decreed to give form to the stone by ferment and union, that is to say, of an imperfect body. And by how much the ferment is more spiritual, the stone will be of so much more penetration and transmutation. These things being promised, I do not think it sit that you should proceed to projection upon mercury instead of fermentation, as Paracelsus teacheth, or that the stone should be fermented his way with gold, either corporeal or spiritual. Which gold will be the foundation of the first projection. But what do the philosophers command us to do? That projection, that is to say fermentation, be made of a perfect foundation, and that upon imperfect bodies that medicines may be made, which foundation of the stone or elixir is not accepted, be only the white or red ferment, in respect of which both gold and silver are said to be imperfect bodies. Therefore this stone is to be fermented before it be projected upon the corporeal foundation or imperfect, that is to say corporeal gold. Therefore join this oil to the fourth part of the oil of the sulphur of gold, and this is the true fermentation or conversion unto the elixir. Then augment it in virtue by solution and coagulation, and in quantity by projection, first upon the corporeal foundation, that is to say gold, then that upon purified mercury, and that medicine upon other bodies which are most sit for projection, that is to say most fusible as lead or tin, which after they are purified are most apt by reason of their easy melting. And thus the inward parts of the earth are visited, and by reflection the hidden stone is found, the true medicine out of the green lion of the philosophers, and not of fools, and out of corporeal and metallic vitriol, not terrestrial and made of mineral copperas. The second chapter of augmentation and projection of the stone. First, let us speak of the augmentation of the virtue or quality, of which Raymund saith, the augmentation in quality and goodness is by solution and coagulation of the tincture, that is to say, by imbiling it with our mercury and drying it. But let us hear Arnoldus more attentively. Take one part of your prepared tincture, and dissolve it in 3 parts of our mercury, then put it in a glass and seal it up and set it in ashes till it be dry and come to a powder, then open the glass and imbile it again, and dry it again, and the oftener you do the thus, so much shall you gain and giveth more tincture. And also as it is found in Clanger Bucchini, dissolve it in the water of mercury of which the medicine was made till it be clear, then congeal it by light decoction and imbile it with its oil upon the fire till it flow, by virtue whereof it will be doubled in tincture, with all its perfections, as you will see in projection, because the weight that was before projected upon 1,000, is now to be projected upon 10,000, and there is no great labor in this multiplication. Again the medicine is multiplied 2 manner of ways. By solution of calidity and solution of variety. By solution of calidity, is that you take the medicine, put in a glass vessel and bury it in our moist fire 7 days or more, till the medicine be dissolved into water without any turbulency. By solution of rarity, is that you take your glass vessel with your medicine and hang it in a new brass pot full of water that boileth, and close up the mouth of the pot, that the medicine may dissolve in the vapour of the boiling water. But note that the boiling water must not touch the glass wherein the medicine is, but hang above it 3 fingers, and this solution will be above it in 2 or 3 days after your medicine is dissolved. take it from the fire to cool, fix and congeal and be hard and dry. This do often, and how much the more the medicine shall be dissolved it will be so much more perfect, and such a solution is the sublimation of the medicine, and its virtual sublimation, which the oftener it is reiterated so much more abundantly and more parts it tingeth. Whence Rhasis saith the goodness of this multiplication consisteth in the reiteration, sublimation and fixation of the medicine, and by how much more this order is repeated it worketh so much more and is augmented, for so often as you sublime your medicine and dissolve it you shall gain so much every time in projection, 1 upon 1,000, and if the first fall upon 1,000 the third upon 100,000 the fourth upon 1,000,000, and so infinitely. For Morienius the philosopher saith, know for certain that the oftener our stone is dissolved and congealed the spirit and soul is joined more to the body and is retained by it, and in every time the tincture is multiplied. Whence we thus read in Scala Philosophorum, which also the philosophers say, dissolve and congeal, so without doubt it is understood of the solution of the body and soul with the spirit into water, and congelation makes the soul and spirit mix with the body, and if with one solution and simple congelation the soul and spirit would be perfectly joined to the body, the philosophers would not say dissolve again, and congeal, and again dissolve and congeal, that the tincture of the stone may grow, if it could be done with one congelation only. The medicine is another way multiplied by fermentation, and the ferment to the white is pure silver and the ferment to the red is pure gold. Therefore project 1 part of your medicine upon A of the ferment, but I say 3 parts of the medicine upon 1 of the ferment, and all will be medicine, which put in a glass upon the fire, and so close it that no air go in nor out. And keep it there till it be subtly aided as you did with the first medicine, and 1 part of the second medicine will have as much virtue as 1 part of the first medicine had. But here again Clanger Buckiney hath erred, for it should be right thus, 1 part of the second medicine will have as much virtue as 10 parts of the first medicine had. And thus by solution and fermentation the medicine may be multiplied infinitely. We have spoken enough of this multiplication. We now come to the other way of augmentation, which is called corporeal multiplication, and according to Raymund is thus defined. Augmentation is the addition of quantity, whence Anison writeth, it is hard to project upon 1,000,000 and to predicate it incontinently, wherefore I will reveal one great secret unto you. 1 part is to be mixed with 1,000 parts of its nearest in kind. I call that nearest that is the body of the same metal whereof the medicine was made or perfected. But to return again to Anison, close all this firmly in a fit vessel and set it in a furnace of fusion 3 days till it be wholly joined together. Whereof it is more largely and better set down by the said author, and the manner of the work is thus projected: 1 part of the foresaid medicine upon 100 parts of molten gold, and it makes it brittle and will all be medicine, whereof 1 part projected 100 of any melted metal converteth it into pure gold, and if you project it upon silver in like manner it converteth all bodies into silver. In Scala Philosophorum all sorts of projection is set thus down in few words. You must know that first it is said project, that is to say 1 upon 100, and see. Yet it is better to project nunc dimittis upon fundamenta, and fundamenta upon verba mea, and verba mea upon diligens te domine, and diligum te upon attendite. This brief Aenigura is thus expounded. It is nothing else but the words and opinion of the former author concealed under the Aenigura. Therefore let us repeat the words of this Aenigura or oracle. Nunc dimittis super fundamenta. Fundamenta super verba mea. Verba mea super diligum te. Diligent super tendite. Now let's go over the basics. Foundations upon my words. I love you beyond my words. Pay close attention. These are trifles for the hiding and concealing the perfection of the art. If the expert artist could be diverted with such simple words, which though they are hard at first to young artists, yet they are thus explained. We therefore begin with the first sentence. Nunc dimittis super fundamenta. Now let's go over the basics. This is here allegorically taken for the last action almost of the work, which is called the medicine or stone, which medicine is to be projected upon the ferment, that is to say upon the oil of Sol or Luna, which are the ferments or foundations of the art in spiritual augmentation, as before was said, upon molten gold and silver. And that spiritual ferment converted into medicine is to be projected upon molten gold or silver, which are corporeal ferments in corporeal augmentation, and the corporeal fundaments of the art upon quicksilver. Fundamenta super verba mea. Foundations upon my words. This is also spoken allegorically, because in the adage it is said words are wind, as if a word were nothing else but the motion of the lips and exaltation of the lungs, which no sooner arise from motion but fly away and are turned to air. So likewise quicksilver or mercury goeth out of the bodies of other metals, and is so volatile in the fire or here as words in the air. And therefore mercury is likened to words upon which the fundaments are to be projected. Verb mea, via mercury, super diligum te. I love you above my words, Mercury. That is to say, upon other metals which have most affinity with quicksilver, and easy of fashion as Saturn and Jupiter, that is to say lead and tin, which by this concord and love are easily by the penetration and amiableness of the medicine converted into medicine. And one part of this medicine converteth other parts of metals into gold or silver according to the force and power of the elixir, which are the metals because they are the substances of the former bodies whereof the medicines were made. They are the attendants of those medicines, wherefore the philosopher commandeth that diligum te, I love you, be projected upon, attendite, pay attention, that the second medicine or this last projected upon metal, especially that whereof the medicine, that is to say the stone, was made, should turn that metal into gold or silver according to the poverty and quality of the medicine. But to put an end to this projection, take it according to the opinion of Arnoldus gathered out of the 31 chapter, who willeth to project one part of the elixir upon 100 of mercury purged, and all will be medicine; upon other 100 parts of mercury purged, and all will be medicine; afterward project one part of this medicine last congealed upon 100 parts of mercury washed, and all will be gold or silver, in all trials according as the elixir is white and red. Lastly, that I may briefly rehearse the absolute manner of projection. First, the medicine is to be projected upon gold or silver molten, then upon quicksilver purged so long till it turns it into medicine, and lastly upon metals most near, that they may be converted into pure gold or silver according to the properties and qualities of the medicine. Because we have said something of the propinquity of metals, that is to say, that the elixir is to be projected upon that imperfect body out of which its mercury and sulfur was first extracted, therefore it will not be unnecessary to set down one example, that is to say, if the medicine was made of mercury, then it is to be projected upon quicksilver for making gold or silver, because quicksilver is a near body to mercury, and so of the rest. Yet it is to be noted, that all elixirs may and ought to be projected upon quicksilver, because quicksilver is the mother and sperm of all metals. Therefore quicksilver made and turned into medicine, is to be projected upon a body, most near to it, which is lead or tin, upon which the medicine is always to be projected, whether white or red, for the making and transmuting of metals, but both the quicksilver and lead are first to be purged, that they may be purified and deprived of their filth. Enough hath been said before of the purgation or purification of mercury. We will now speak of the purification of lead. Melt your lead in a crucible, and when it is melted let it stand in the fire 1/4 of an hour, and put therein a little salt ammoniac, and let it stand a while in the fire, and stir it with an iron spatula till all the salt ammoniac be gone away in some, then scrape the skin away out of the crucible, that is upon the lead, then let it stand to cool, and it will be much whiter and fairer. And thus you must purify your lead or tin, before projection, because no other bodies are so fusible, and apt to melt, wherefore every elixir ought to be projected upon quicksilver and upon lead or tin for making or transmuting of metals. But to the end the manner of projection may be yet more plain, I will set down 2 rules which must be carefully observed. The first whereof is that the first medicine, that is to say the stone, be projected upon the ferment, always 3 parts of the medicine upon one of the ferment, and 1 part of this upon 10 or 100 of pure molten gold, and 1 part of this medicine thus made upon 100 parts of an imperfect body, that is to say, of mercury for medicine. The latter is that you must always consider the fortitude and debility of your medicine, for it is to be projected so often upon quicksilver as it bringeth it into a brittle medicine, and when it faileth then project 1 part thereof upon lead or tin for making transmutation, according to the order and form of the elixir. These being remembered, you may easily conceive the order of augmentation in virtue and quantity. These chapters being ended, the other 3 which follow are set down in the next book. Because we have spoken before of potable gold and silver, it is therefore necessary, after we have made an end of projection, to set down another table of the elixir of life in the next place, and after speak of its virtue and power as we find it among all the antient and modern philosophers, and so make an end of the first book. Finis. Hamigule Hamponia, or the Rosicrucian crown set with 7 angels, 7 planets, 7 genii, 12 senior, 12 ideas, 16 figures, and their occult powers, upon the 7 metals and miraculous virtues in medicines, with the perfect full discovery of the pantava and elixirs of metals prepared to cure the diseased. Whereunto is added Elevaria una Praesoria, Regio Lucis, and Psunthon books much desired by the learned of the world, now completed and communicated to all manner of persons. By John Heydon Gent, non-Latin, a servant of God and secretary of nature. London, printed by P. L. for Samuel Speed, and are to be sold at the Rainbow in Fleet Street. 1665. To the truly honourable and excellently accomplished the most renowned, John Lloyd Esquire, external internal and external felicity be wished. Sir, I dedicate my books to you, and your noble brother because wisdom and virtue cannot be parted, but being my 2 guards of safety or preserving patrons to defend me from envy and malice, I presume to call you governor of my Regio Lucis, and him protector of Elevaria una, or the high priest of the Rosy Cross, and the harmony of the world, the temple of wisdom, the holy guide. Contain the power of natural science and the most absolute consummation thereof, and that which is the active part of figures which by the help of the natural virtues of metals, from a mutual and opportune application of them, brings forth operations even to admiration, which sciences the Rosicrucians taught when they came to worship our Saviour Christ when he was born. The princes of all places did study these sciences, as Hyathas king of the Chaldeans, Gespian prince of the Brachmans, Phrotes the Indian prince, Astaphan duke of the Gymsophists, Buddha king of Babylon, Numa Pompilius king of the Romans, Amoxides emperor of Thrace, Abaris priest of the Hyperborean Jews, Hermes Trismegister king and lawgiver of Egypt, Zoroaster the son of Oromasus king of Persia, all these and many more were lovers of these Rosicrucian infallible axiomata, and both writers and patrons of this kind of learning, as Josephus the Hebrew, Hermes Iranthes king of Arabia and c. And Plato relates in Alcibiades that the sons of the Persian kings were instructed in these sciences, that might learn to administer, and distribute their image to the commonwealth of the world, and the commonwealth to it, and Cicero saith in his books of divination, that there was none amongst the Persians did enjoy the kingdom, but he that had first learned philosophy. Rosicrucians contemplate the powers of natural, and celestial things, and searching curiously into their sympathy do produce incredible powers in nature into public view, so coupling inferior telesums, images, gammas and other things as allurements to the gift of superior angels, planets, genii, ideas and figures and other things, that by the mutual application of angels, planets and stars to Genji and figures of geomancy upon metals, arise wonderful miracles, not so much by art as by nature. To which art becomes an assistant whilst it works these things, elections being made of hours when angels and planets are strong, figures and characters rightly engraven or cast upon prepared spermatic pure metal clear and fine, free from any mixture, and all fitted to the angel planet sign idea, figure of geomancy, and these must be applied to the person of the querent or native, signified by the angel planet sign genius idea and figure, who shall then find the celestial and terrestrial powers, unite to his desire, and perform incredible extraordinary things, at certain times naturally, and Rosicrucians as the most curious searchers of nature making use of these things that are prepared by nature only, by applying fiery active things to earthly passive things, produce oftentimes effects before the time ordained by nature, which the envious scribblers think are miracles and cry them down as magical with and in their under opinion termed diabolical, which indeed are natural works, the prevention only of the time coming betwixt, as if anyone should produce roses in the month of March, and apple trees blow and bear fruit in December, and ripe cherries, grapes and beans in January, or make parsley grow into perfect plant within few hours, and cause greater things than these, as clouds, rain, thunders, and animals of divers kinds, and raise the dead, and spot horses black and white like stars or any other color. And very many transmutations of things. These books and arts I submit, you excelling in judgment and candor, to your censure, that if I have wrote anything which may end either to the contumely of nature, offending God, or injury of religion, you may condemn the error, but the scandal of malicious persons being dissolved, you may defend the tradition of truth, and that you would do so with these books, and myself, that nothing may be concealed which may be profitable, and nothing approved of, which cannot but do hurt, by which means the harmony of the world, the temple of wisdom, the holy guide, Regio Lucis and Elevaria una, having passed your examination, as well as my other patrons, with approbation, may at length be thought worthy to come forth with good success in public as my other books, and may not be afraid to come under censure of posterity, because I wear the most noble title of April the 5th at noon 1664. Your most affectionate humble servant and true honourer, John Heydon. The Rosicrucian crown set with angels, planets and metals and sea. The second book. Chap. I, of the blessed stone of the philosophers or the elixir of life, and also the way of making malleable glass. 1. Elixir of life. 2. Gold dissolved. 3. Silver dissolved. 4. Gold melted. 5. Melted silver. 6. Projection of the red medicine. 7. Projection of the white medicine. Hermes, speaking of fermentation, bids us to take the sun and his shadow. By the shadow he meaneth the moon, because in respect of dignity, lustre, and power she is much more weak, and inferior than the sun. And the moon followeth the sun as a shadow doth the body, and is not illuminated except by the light of the sun. We will first speak of the body, that is to say of gold, and after come to the shadow, of which gold it is written in a book of chemical art in this manner. The philosopher's stone is made of gold alone and only by nature, and is more sublime than them, which the philosophers affirm cureth all infirmities. According to the opinion of this philosopher, I purpose to begin with gold alone, and the medicine which is a new and sole nature, and antient and sound quintessence. But to the end this gold may be better and more pure, it may be purged two manner of ways, that is to say, by antimony and by dissolution in corrosive waters with which copper plates are mixed, as goldsmiths used to do, which is called water gold. When you have thus prepared your gold, project one part of your red medicine, or red elixir, upon 100 parts thereof. When your medicine is augmented in virtue, and all that weight of molten gold will be converted into a red brittle mass, which grind upon a marble to an impalpable powder. Then dissolve these 100 parts or so much thereof as you please in distilled vinegar or in spirit of wine, and set it to digest in balneo the space of a day or two. Then distill the spirit of wine from it in balneo, and in the bottom will remain the fixed and pure oil of the gold, which is then the true aurum potabile, and spiritual elixir of life. If you would give to any one of this powder presently before it be converted to oil, warm a little white or Rhenish wine, and dissolve in either of them so much of the red powder as will tincture the same into a red color, and the wine so tinctured will be aurum potabile, but it would be better and more penetrating if it were tinctured with the foresaid oil. In like manner is the white medicine to be projected after the purification of the silver in a corrosive water, as is before declared. And so the melted silver will be converted into a brittle powder and white mass, which likewise is to be dissolved and turned into oil, and thus the white elixir of life is made, and potable silver curing and healing so far as it is able humane diseases. For it cannot be supposed that the elixir of Luna hath so great virtue as the elixir of Sol hath. Whence the author of the book called Correctio Falnarum, and Richard Anglicus in his Correctory, say, whereas among the vulgar and philosophers, God hath this report, that being in his first disposition that it cureth the leprosy and many other virtues, this is not except by its complete digestion, because the excellency of the fire acting in it consumeth all evil humours that are in sick bodies, as well in hot as cold causes. But silver cannot do this, because hath not so much superfluity of fire, and is not so much disgested and decocted with natural maturity. Yet notwithstanding this it hath a fire in us occultly and virtually in it, but not so fully, because the fire causeth not such elemental qualities as in gold. And therefore silver, being in his first disposition, doth not cure the leprosy so potently, unless it be first dissected by art until it have the chief degrees of gold in all maturity. Wherefore other sick metallic bodies more weakly cure infirmities, according as they differ more from them in perfection and maturity. Some differ more, some less, which is by reason of the sulphur infected sed and burning of which they were made at the beginning in their generation and anagulation, and therefore they cure not, whereas the fire in them is burning, and so infected with the elemental feces with the mixture of other elemental qualities. Seeing therefore that gold is of such vigour amongst the vulgar, and that being in his first disposition, what wonder is it if it, being brought into medicine, as is experienced, by art, and his virtue be subtly aided by digestion of decoction and purgation of the qualities, but it may then cure more, nay infinite, or all diseases. It makes an old man young and revive, it preserveth health, strengtheneth nature, and expelleth all sicknesses of the body. It driveth poison away from the heart, it moisteneth the arteries, and briefly preserveth the whole body sound. In the Ludus Puerum it is thus written of the use of this medicine. The manner of using it according to all the philosophers is thus: if you will use to eat of this medicine, then take the weight of 2 Florence ducats of our elixir and 1 pound of any confection, and eat of that confection the quantity of 1 dram in winter. And if you do thus, it driveth away all bodily infirmities from what cause soever they proceed, whether hot or cold, and conserveth health and youth in a man, and maketh an old man young, and maketh grey hairs to fall. It also presently cureth the leprosy, and dissolveth phlegm, mundifieth the blood, it sharpeneth the sight and all the senses after a most wonderful manner, above all the medicines of the philosophers. To which purpose we thus find in the Rosary of the Philosophers, in this, that is to say in the elixir, is completed the precious gift of God, which is the arcanum of all the sciences in the world, and the incomparable treasure of treasures, for as Plato saith, he that hath this gift of God hath the dominion of the world, that is to say of the microcosm, because he attaineth to the end of riches, hath broke the bonds of nature. Not only for that he hath power to convert all imperfect metals into pure gold and silver, but rather because he can convert and preserve both man and every animal in perfect health. To this purpose speaketh Geber, Hermes Arnoldus, Raymundus, Lullius, Ripley, Penitus, Augurellus, Aegidius, Valescus, Roger Bacon, Scotus, Laurentius, Ventura, and diverse uncertain authors. Lastly, I now come to the general consent of all the philosophers, and repeat what is found in their writings in the book to Aurora Consurgite, and in Clanger Buccini. It is to be noted that the Antient philosophers have found 4 principal effects or virtues in the glorious repository of this treasure. 1. First, it is said to cure man's body of all infirmities. 2. Secondly, to cure imperfect metals. 3. Thirdly, to transmute base stones into precious gems. 4. Fourthly, to make glass malleable. Of the first, all philosophers have consented that when the elixir is perfectly rubified, it doth not only work miracles in solid bodies, but also in man's body, of which there is no doubt, for being taken inwardly it cureth all infirmities, it cureth outwardly by unction. The philosophers also say, if it be given to any in water or wine first warmed, it cureth them of the phrenesy, dropsy, and leprosy, and all kind of fevers are cured by this tincture, and taketh away whatsoever is in a weak stomach. It bindeth and consumeth the flux of peccant humours, being taken fasting. It driveth away melancholy and sadness of the mind. It cureth the infirmities of the eyes, and drieth up their moistness and blearedness. It helpeth the purblind. Red or bloodshot eyes, it mollifieth the primy or web. The inflammation of the eyes and all other incident diseases are easily cured by this philosophical medicine. It comforteth the heart and spiritual parts by taking inwardly. It mitigateth the pain of the head by anointing the temples therewith. Maketh the deaf to hear, and sucketh all pains of the ears. It rectifieth the contracted nerves by unction. It restoreth rotten teeth by washing. Also all kind of imposthumes are cured with it, by ointments or implators, or injecting the dry powder therein. It cureth ulcers, wounds, cancers, fistulas, noli me tangere, and such like diseases, and generateth new flesh if it be mixed with corrupt and sour wine. It restores it. It expelleth poison being taken inwardly. It also killeth worms if it be given in powder. It taketh away wrinkles and spots in the face by anointing therewith, and maketh the face seem young. It helpeth women in travail being taken inwardly, and bringeth out the dead child by emplaister. It provoketh urine, and helpeth generation. It preventeth drunkenness, helpeth the memory, and augmenteth the radical moisture. It strengtheneth nature, and also administereth many other good things to man's body. 2. Of the second it is written that it transmuteth all imperfect metals in colour, substance, lasting weight, ductility, melting, hardness, and softness. 3. Of the third, that is to say of transmuting base and ignoble stones into precious gems, I will not speak of in this place, because I have reserved it for another place, that is to say the third book. Of the fourth it is writ that it maketh glass malleable by mixture, that is to say of the powder of the white corporeal elixir, when the glass is melted. Thus far Aurora Consurgius and Clanger Buccini. Now if you desire to make pure and clear malleable glass, learn this of me, and beware of what glass you make your metal, for you must not take glass of flints, wherewith glass of windows are made, but such as your Venice glass is made of, and that is to be chosen out of the first metal of the glass, which hath stud molten in the fire, in the glassmaker's furnace the space of a night, and then it will be without spots and pure. Therefore take as much of the said glass out of the furnace with your iron rod, as you have a desire to convert, and when it is cold weigh it, and melt it by itself in a pot, and when it is well molten project your white corporeal elixir upon it, and it will be converted into malleable metal and fit and apt glass for all goldsmiths' operations. And thus is glass made malleable and prepared for any use. But if this were done with the red elixir it would be much more during, for there is nothing more precious of which we will not now speak. Therefore, son or reader, whosoever thou art who readest my books, give credit to me and believe me, because all things that you shall find writ here are either the most approved writings and collections of all writers, or the author's own experiments. For I have tried many things and found many things true. I believe no man liveth amongst mortals that knoweth more ways of preparations which are concealed by almost all the philosophers. For that which perfecteth the great work that they have all concealed, which truly is the error of all artists. And this is all I would have you to do: to calcine, dissolve and separate the elements, after join them together, purify them or reduce them into sulfur, ferment, project, augment in virtue and quantity. This is only the work of the philosophers, of which the whole company of philosophers have written a continuate course. Hamponia Hamigula, or the Rosicrucian crown, in which is set down the angels of the 7 planets, and their occult power upon the 7 metals, and miraculous virtues in the Coelum Terrae, or first matter of all things, whereunto is added a perfect full discovery of the Pantava, and Elixirs of Mettals. By Eugenius Theodidactus, non-Latin, a servant of God, and secretary to nature. Ubi est scientia, ibi est invidia. Where there is knowledge, there is envy. London. Printed for the author, and are to be sold at the Rainbow in Fleet Street. 1664. To the worthy, learned, noble, and valiant Colonel Samuel Sandys, late Governor of His Majesty's garrison in the famous city of Worcester, and now one of the Right Honourable Members of Parliament, and c. Your late respects to me have commanded my soul to serve you, and knowing you are as well a philosopher and learned, as a soldier that can command armies of horse and foot into good order for war, I therefore humbly present this little piece of philosophy to your pleasure, as the book is art and nature united to serve you, so the epistle may make you merry, by the great power of natural things, for you know they not only work upon all things that are near them by their virtue, but also besides this, they infuse into them a like power, through which by the same virtue they also work upon other things, as in the lodestone, which stone doth not only draw iron rings, but also infuseth a virtue into the rings themselves, whereby they can do the same. After this manner it is, that the common harlots and villains, grounded daily in boldness and impudence in stage plays, infect all that are near them by this property, whereby the spectres are made like them. Therefore they say that if any one shall put on the inward garments of a stage player, or shall have about him that looking glass which they daily look into, he shall become bold, confident, ignorant, impudent and wanton. So a cloth that was about a dead core, makes him that carries it sad and melancholy. And if you put a green lizard made blind, together with iron or gold rings into a glass vessel, putting under them some earth, shutting then the vessel, and when it appears that the lizard hath received his sight, shall put them out of the glass, that those rings shall help sore eyes, the same may be done with gold rings, and a weasel, whose eyes with any kind of prick are put out, it is certain are restored to sight again. Upon the same account rings are put for a certain time in the nest of sparrows or swallows, which afterwards are used to procure love and favour. These observations and 10,000 more I made to serve you, and they shall testify. You shall know you have power to command? Your most affectionate humble servant John Heydon. The Third Book of Saturne, or Lead the First Direction. Chapter 1. Of the elixir, putrefaction into sulphur, the oil of the sulphur, of the conjunction of the salt and oil of the spirit, or salt of Saturn, which containeth the oil or soul of the menstruum of white mercury and red water of paradise, resolution, solution, distillation, hill, purgation, resolution of sericon, of the gum of sericon, of the solution of the minium or adrop, of calcination of minium into adrop and red lead, of calcination of lead with aqua fortis. Very many have writ of Saturn or lead, but none that I know of have writ fully thereof in any particular treatise. Therefore I do not here only set down what I have gathered from them most briefly and truly, but also those things which I have found and proved by my own experience, which I have annexed to them, that the work may be absolute and complete. Of which, as they say, Mary the prophetess, and the sister of Moses in her books of the work of Saturne is thus said to write, make your water running like the water of the two Zyboth and fix it upon the heart of Saturne, and in another place, marry the gum with the true matrimonial gum, and you shall make it like running water. Of which process of Mary, George Ripley our countryman hath these verses. Maria mira sonnet. Que nobis talia donat. Gummies cum benis. Fugitivum fugit inimis. Horis in trines. Tria vincula fortia finis. Phila plutones. Consortia jungit amoris. Mary sounds wonderful. Which gives us such things. Gummies with 2. The fugitive fled from the enemy. 3 hours. A strong end binds the 3 threads of Pluto. Love joins together. Or thus. Maria mira sonnet, brevita qui talia donat. Gummi cum benis fugitivum fugit inimis. Horis in trines tria vincula fortia finis. Maria lux roris ligam ligat in tribus horis. Philia Pluton is consortia jungit amoris. Gaudet in asala sola patria sociata. Mary sounds wonderful, briefly who gives things. Gummy and the 2 fugitives, flee to the bottom. In 3 hours the strong end binds the 3. Mary's light binds the dew in 3 hours. The daughter of Pluto joins the company of love. In Asala alone rejoices, through 3 associates. The heart of Saturn, saith Ripley, is his white and clear body, out of whose doctrine the work doth briefly thus proceed, that is to say, that water he made out of the body of Saturn, like the water Zyboth, and that water fixed upon the heart of Saturn, but because the practice of drawing out this water of Zyboth, doth not appear out of this, nor the way of making the heart of Saturn, therefore the foregoing direction in the Holy Guide will show them both. Therefore I have joined 2 tables, in one of which the shorter is the demonstration of the deduction of the body of Saturn into his heart or salt, the other longer and greater, is the extraction of the water Zyboth, and the consummation of the work of Saturn. Having thus described this work, I now come to the explanation, and say, that the calcination of the body is twofold, for the calcination thereof in the shorter work, for extracting the heart of Saturn, is done on this wise by aqua fortis. Take 8 or 10 ounces of lead in filings, and dissolve it in aqua fortis in double proportion, and fortified with salt ammoniac in an earthen vessel with a narrow neck, and set in ashes till it be totally dissolved, and there will remain a white matter in the bottom like grains of white salt, which is a figure of perfect solution. Then pour your matter that is dissolved in the water into a body, and set thereon a limbec, and in balneo draw away the corrosive water, till there remain a dry substance in the bottom, and so you have the body converted white by calcination with corrosive water, out of which the heart of Saturn is to be drawn. The way to wash away and purge the corrosive water from the body, pour warm water upon the substance in a limbec, and pour it often off till it have no sharpness at all upon the tongue, and then your body is prepared for drawing out the salt. When your matter is well dried, dissolve it again in distilled vinegar, and distill the vinegar twice or thrice from it, and in the bottom you shall have a lucid clear and white shining salt, which is then called the heart of Saturn. Now I come to the practice of the other greater work, that the verity of the stone may be found, which many have made mention in their books, as Raymundus, who calleth it the vegetable mineral, and animal stone, yea bare saith there groweth a Saturnian herb on the top of a hill or mountain, whose blood if it be extracted, cureth all infirmities. Ripley writ a whole book, called his Practical Compendium, of the practice of the vegetable stone, teaching the manner and form of operation, but because he neither set down the solution plainly nor perfectly, he hath been the cause of much error, and hath not only deceived me but all those that followed him, until after a long time I found a way to dissolve Saturn, so that it could never after by distillation be turned into lead again, which is the chiefest and greatest secret of the vegetable stone. But let us hear the words of Mary the prophetess, and Ripley taken from her. The radix of our matter is a clear and white body which putrefieth not, but congealeth mercury or quicksilver, with its odour makes its water like the running water of the two Zyboth, Elixirs, and fix it upon the fixed heart of Saturn, which words do most aptly agree with the properties of lead, for if anyone be smit or wounded with a bullet, and the bullet remain in the body, it will never purify. And also if quicksilver be hanged in a pot over the fume of molten lead, so as the fume of the lead touch the quicksilver, it will congeal it. Thus far of the preparation of lead, we now come to its denomination. They bid us fix the water Zyboth upon the fixed body of the heart of Saturn. Now for the exposition of the body, for the name of Saturn, Ripley calleth it Adrop, of which that is made which the masters call Sericon, the water of Sericon they call their menstruum. The two Zyboths joined together in one water, are the two mercuries, that is to say white and red contained in one menstruum. That is to say of the water and oil of the fixed body or heart of Saturn. Follow what I have written concerning the imbibition of the earth. Our operation is no otherwise than in the practical compendium of Ripley. Isaacus also writ a treatise of lead. He worketh chiefly according to the doctrine of Mary the prophetess, and laboureth much to fix the earth of Saturn, and after to dissolve the body in distilled vinegar, that by the addition of corroding and sharp things, his red oil may be distilled, which he calleth the water of paradise, that he may imbibe his fixed earth therewith, which weighs much shorter than Ripley's, but the rulification and fixation of the earth is long and uncertain. Wherefore I have both forsaken Isaacus and Ripley in making the earth, instead of which I have given the fixed heart of Saturn, as you may read in the Holy Guide. But that the body may be prepared according to this table, and after my intention and the desire of Ripley, we both will that the oil or water of paradise be drawn out of the gum of Sericon, whose father is Adrop. Sericon is made of red lead, therefore it is first necessary to show the way of making minium of lead, which Thomas Jack an Englishman hath described, together with the composition of the gum of Sericon, which author I purpose to follow, as being the best. Take 10 or 12 pound of lead, and melt it in a great iron vessel, as plumbers used to do, and when it is molten, stir it still with an iron spatula till the lead be turned to powder, which powder will be of a green colour. When you see it thus, take it from the fire and let it cool, and grind that powder upon a marble till it be impalpable, moistening the powder with a little common vinegar, till it be like thick honey, which put into a broad earthen vessel, and set it on a trevet over a lent fire. To vapour away the vinegar and dry the powder, and it will be of a yellow colour. Grind it again and do as before, till the powder be so red as red lead, which is called Adrop, and thus is Saturn calcined into red lead or minium. Take a pound of this reed lead and dissolve it in a gallon of vinegar, and stir it with a stick 3 or 4 times in a day, and so let it stand in a cold place the space of 3 days. Then take your earthen vessel and set it in balneo 24 hours, then let it cool and filter the liquor 3 times, and when it is clear, put it in a body with a limbeck thereupon, and distill the vinegar so long as it will ascend, and in the bottom the gum of the Sericon will remain like thick honey, which set apart, and dissolve more new lead as before for more gum, till you have 10 or 12 pound thereof. Now give careful attention, for we now come to the point and period of Ripley's error, for if you put 4 pound of this Sericon to distill in a limbeck, and from thence would draw a menstruum, as Ripley teacheth, perhaps you would have scarce 1 ounce of this oil, and some part of a black earth will remain in the bottom, and most part of the gum melted again into lead, by which you may know that the Sericon is not well dissolved, nor as yet sufficiently prepared, that a chaos may be made thereof fit for distillation, because it is not yet well dissolved. Therefore in Isaacus there is found a way of resolving this gum with distilled vinegar, actuated with calcined tartar and salt ammoniac. Wherefore, saith he, if thou be wise, resolve thy gum, but I like not this actuation of the vinegar, as I may call it. I rather choose to resolve the Sericon in Raymund's calcinative water, which is a compounded water of the vegetable mercury or fire natural, with the fire against nature. As Ripley testifieth, and it is more verified by Raymund in his Book of Mercuries, where he teacheth how to dissolve bodies with his calcinative water. I will reveal unto you this water, which is almost unknown. Note therefore, that the vegetable mercury is the spirit of wine, instead of which we may sometimes use distilled vinegar, and that the fire against nature is a corrosive water made of vitriol and saltpeter. Therefore take which you will, either spirit of wine rectified, or aqua vitae, or distilled vinegar 4 pound, and 2 pound of corrosive water, and mix them together. In this water thus compounded, resolve 1/2 pound of gum of Sericon in a circulatory, and set it in balneo 4 or 5 days, and the gum will be totally dissolved into the form of water or oil of a duskish red color. Then distill away the water in balneo, and there will remain an oil in the bottom, which is then the chaos, out of which you may draw a menstruum containing 2 elements, and this is the true resolution of the gum of Sericon. In this water you may resolve so much gum as you please by reiteration. Take 2 pound of this shahodical substance, and prepare it for distillation in naked fire or sand, and lift up the clear red oil, wherein both the spirit and soul doth secretly lie hid, which Isaacus calleth the water of paradise, which when you have you may rejoice, for you have gone through all the gross work, and come to the philosophical work. Therefore now proceed to conjunction, and join the white heart of Saturn with the red oil, as it is found in the rosary. Candida succincto jacidux or nocta marito, that is to say, the red mercury to the salt, if you proceed to the red work. Therefore take 4 ounces of the salt or heart of Saturn, and as much of the red oil or water of paradise, and seal them up in a philosopher's egg, and so soon as they shall feel the heat of the balneum, the salt will dissolve and be made all one with the oil, so as you shall not know which was the salt, which was the oil. Set your glass in balneo, and there let it stand in an equal degree of fire, till all your matter be turned white and stick to the sides of the glass, and shine like fish's eyes, and then it is white sulphur of nature. But if you proceed to the red work, then divide your white sulphur into equal parts, reserving 1 part for the white work, and go on with the other part, and in a new glass well sealed up, set it in ashes till it be turned into a red color. When your sulphur is thus converted, imbibe it again with equal weight of its soul, dissolving and congealing till it remain in an oil, and it will congeal no more, but remain fixed and flowing. This then is to be fermented with the 4th part of the oil of gold, as is often mentioned before. We have set down already before of the augmentation in quantity and quality, therefore it is not necessary to repeat it here. We will now return to the white sulphur before reserved, that we may set down the manner of the white work. When you have your red oil or soul, if you desire to make the white elixir, set part of the said oil in a glass in balneo to digest, then take it out and put it into a body, and in a lent fire distill away the spirit or white mercury, which you must try, that you may know whether it arise pure without water or not, as you do when you try the spirit of wine, for if it burn all up, it is well, if it do not, rectify it so often, till it be without any water in us at all, then have you rectified your spirit, wherewith dissolve your white sulphur, till it remain fixed, and flowing, as you did before in the red work. Then ferment it and augment it with the 4th part of the oil of the white luminary or lunar, as you did the red, and it will be the white elixir, converting imperfect bodies into perfect silver. A corollary. Ripley divided the scope of this work into 4 operations, whereof the first is the dissolution of the body, the second, the extraction of the menstruum and the separation of the elements. The third is not necessary in our work, because we cast away the earth after every distillation, instead of which we use our salt or heart of Saturn. The fourth is, that there be a conjunction of our salt as is before described. Hereafter followeth the occurtation of the work of Saturn. The way of extracting quicksilver out of Saturn is found in Isaacus, of which I know how to make a special occurtation with his water of paradise, which I gathered partly from the foresaid author and others. Ripley made his occurtation with quicksilver precipitated with gold, and the imbibition with corrosive water, which I like not, because the elixir so made will be the greatest poison, as himself confesseth, that it were better for a man to eat the eyes of a basilisk, than taste that elixir. But because I desire to set down this occurtation of lead alone and his elements, that no strange body may be added to our elixir, and also that it may be made a medicine for all uses, I have found out the way of making alone with the mercury of Saturn and his own proper tincture, for I make a body of one thing which is a spirit, and make that medicine with its own proper spirit. Read all the philosophers, and you shall never find a word of this process, nor none of the ancients will teach thee how to make the mercury of Saturn, which that it may be briefly done, this following work will show at large in our holy guide. Chapter 2. The medicine, elixir, fermentation, imbibition, precipitation, quicksilver, Saturn, lead, the toad. My great-grandfather Christopher Heydon saith in a certain manuscript of his, Levi enim artenerunt alchemisti mercurium currentum confisere explumbo, that is to say, the alchemists knew how by an easy art to make current mercury out of lead, but what art that was, neither he nor any of the ancients have showed unto us. Quaerite, saith the first alchemist, so Paracelsus was pleased to say in imitation of him, and invietis, pulsate and operiatur vobis, that is to say, seek and you shall find. Knock it shall be opened unto you, which may rather seem to be the words of an envious master, than the precepts of a teacher. But having learned this, I learned to seek, that is to say to read, I read, I knocked, that is, I tried many experiments, although they were repugnant to doctrine and philosophy. Therefore, although I almost despaired of that art, yet because nothing is difficult to the industrious, by often knocking, at last I found it apart, by what means I attained to the art of such a facility, that is to say, of making quicksilver of lead, and when the process is read to the operator, it will be rather rejected than believed, but to the end this art may be revealed as a great secret, I thought it necessary to speak first of the instruments necessary in this work, before I come to declare the doctrine, which are 3 in number, that is to say, a furnace, a crucible and a pair of tongs, as appeareth in the Holy Guide. Chapter 3. The crucible, the furnace, the hole in the top of the furnace, the tongues, the coals. Let the furnace be D, the place filled with coals E, whereon to put fire, and when the coals are well burnt, so that they give a clear flame and fire, take your crucible A, well annailed that it break not with the sudden heat, and put therein 3 ounces of filed lead, having 12 ounces of mercury sublimate well ground, and salt ammoniac 6 ounces mixed together, which put upon the filings of lead into the crucible A, and when the fire is strong and glowing hot, take your tongs C, and presently take up your crucible, and put it in B, the hole in the top of the furnace till you hear a great noise and buzzing, then so soon as you can, lest the quicksilver fly away with the spirits, take away the crucible with the matter therein, and set it in an earthen dish filled with ashes to cool, and when it is cold strike the lower part of the crucible, so that the matter of the lead may fall into an earthen dish, and you shall find your lead converted into quicksilver. This crucible and furnace is at large charactered in the Holy Guide. This work is to be reiterated with new spirits till you have a sufficient quantity of quicksilver, with which proceed as followeth to precipitate. This quicksilver, that from a spirit it may be converted into a fixed body by fixation. Take of this quicksilver so much as you please, and put it to precipitate in a round glass well luted, and set it in ashes to the top of the glass, yet let us stay here a while, that your understanding may be the more enlightened. Therefore understand that the intention of this work is to fix the spirit, which may sooner be done with the spirit of a fixed body, which before was homogeneal with the body, and which of its own nature desireth to join again with its body. Therefore nature requireth that she may be helped by art in this work, to which the artist consenting, he administereth thereto the pure and desired metal, which it delighteth to adhere unto, which metal is gold, which is thus prepared, that it be sooner parted by the quicksilver and stick thereunto. Take as much pure gold as you please, and dissolve it in aqua regis mixed with equal part of acetum acerrimum, very sharp vinegar, or lac virginis, virgin's milk, then set it to digest the space of a day, then put your dissolution into an alembic, and set it balneo, to distill away the water as dry as you can, and do thus 3 times, and the 3rd time distill it in ashes, that the salt ammoniac may sublime. Then put distilled vinegar upon the matter remaining, and after it hath stood 3 days in balneo, distill the vinegar away in ashes, that all the substance of the salt ammoniac may sublime, and do thus 3 times, always putting in new vinegar, until the oil of the dissolved gold remain in the bottom. Then take of your quicksilver 3 times so much as your gold, and pour it upon the solution of the gold, that they may mix together and be united. Then put your quicksilver with the solution in a round glass stopped only with a piece of cotton, and with a stick put it down every day as it doth ascend, and keep your glass in ashes the space of a moneth, till your quicksilver be turned into a red precipitate, then again dissolve it in new distilled vinegar, till the whole substance of the quicksilver be dissolved, and the vinegar be coloured in a golden colour, then distill away the vinegar in ashes, and again precipitate the quicksilver, which is in the bottom of a gold colour, into a red and fixed body, and to have you the mercury precipitate of Saturne. It remaineth now that the body be imbibed with its soul, that this being from a spirit reduced into a body, may again imbibe its soul, that it may be dissolved therewith. Therefore put it into your glass, and add thereto equal proportion of its soul or water of paradise, and shut your glass well the space of 5 days, till the body be dissolved with the soul. Then dry it in ashes till it penetrate and flow, and when it is dried, try it upon a hot iron plate it be fixed and melt, if not, imbibe it again with half the weight of its water, and do so till you make it fusible and piercing by imbibing and saying it, and when it will melt in the fire, and penetrate, it is then the stone, and fit for fermentation. We have said enough of the manner of fermentation in the 2nd book, and therefore it is not necessary to repeat it here, and so after fermentation it will be the elixir. Then it is to be augmented and projected, as is before declared, and thus the work of Saturn is occurtated, of which George Ripley saith, Adrop is the father of the stone, Sericon his brother, Lympha his fister, the earth its mother. But if you desire to know all the secret of Saturn or lead, I will set you down one process out of Paracelsus. When you have well prepared the heart of Saturn, saith he, take 2 or 3 ounces of that heart and grind it small with double weight of saltpetre, and put it in a subliming glass, with a head well luted to sublime, increasing the fire by little and little as long as anything will ascend or sublime. Thus far Paracelsus. Now if you find this true, Ripley will tell you what you shall do with it. In these words, when by the violence of the fire in the distillation of the gum of the Sericon, a certain white matter shall ascend sticking to the head of the limbec, like ice, keep this matter which hath the property of sulphur not burning, and is a fit matter for receiving form, you shall give it form after this manner by rubifying it in ashes, and when it is red sulphur, give it of its soul, until it pierce and flow, then ferment it. Here I have delivered unto you all the ways and manners of Saturn, which are found in any of the Philosophers' books, to the end therefore that the work may be completed with a demonstration of this word plumbum Philosophorum, that appears in the practical compendium of Ripley. We say that the Philosopher's lead is not taken for antimony but for adrop, being converted into the gum of Sericon. It remaineth now that we in order treat of the third termination of this book, therefore after we have done with Saturn, it is necessary to speak of Jupiter, viz. 10. But because there are many other ways of handling Saturn besides those we mentioned, therefore we refer the reader thither, seeing he followeth his footsteps, for he is the offspring of Saturn and naturally born from him. Chapter 4. The third table of the elixir of iron. It is not necessary to prefix a peculiar table to this metal alone, because it is set down before this book. Nevertheless I will here reckon up its parts and operations as followeth. 1. Calcination. 2. Solution. 3. Separation. 4. Conjunction. 5. Putrefaction. 6. Sulfur. 7. Fermentation. 8. Elixir. Exaltation or augmentation and projection is spoken of sufficiently in the former books. Mars being most earthly of all the planets or bodies, it is not to be doubted but that it may easily be reduced into a body with little labor, and therefore most easily converted into salt, which is done by calcination. Therefore we will first show his conversion into salt. Understand therefore, that hence ariseth a twofold consideration, that is to say, that it be calcined one way into its body or salt, the other way that the body be prepared for solution by calcination. The practice differeth but a little, for whether you calcine iron for its salt or its menstruum, one only manner of preparation sufficeth. That is to say, that you take filings of iron or steel, as much as you please, and mix therewith equal weight of sulphur in an earthen body with a limbec well luted thereto, then set it in ashes to sublime till all the sulphur be sublimed from it, then dissolve the filings which remain in the bottom in aqua regia, and it will be converted into salt, which will be cleansed from the said water. If you put thereon distilled vinegar and distill it away, do thus 3 times with new vinegar. And you shall have a yellowish red salt in the bottom, which then is a body to be joined to the soul, which keep in warm ashes till you use it. Now for the practice of iron for dissolution take filings of iron or steel, so much as you please, and put it in an iron dish filled with vinegar, and set it in the flaming fire the space of 3 hours, then take it out and let it cool. Reiterate this work 4 or 5 times, the calcine it with sulphur as you did before. When it is thus calcined, set it to dissolve in a corrosive water, by adding equal weight of acetum acerrimum, and let it stand till it have dissolved so much as it can in the cold, then set it in hot ashes, and let it stand there the space of 4 or 5 days, pour off the water and dry which is not dissolved, and again calcine it and dissolve it, and when it is dissolved, so as the water be colored red, pour it out into a body, and keep it till you have dissolved as much calcined iron as you please. Then take all your dissolutions, and with an alembic distill away the water in balneo, and put distilled vinegar upon the matter remaining in the bottom, and let it stand upon it in balneo the space of 7 days, then take out your glass and filter the dissolution, and then again in balneo distill off the vinegar, and in the bottom will remain a thick oil of the iron or steel, but if it be not dissolved to your mind, reiterate your solution in Raymund's calcinative water. But it would be better if it were edulcorated with aqua vitae, drawing it away again in balneo, and so you have your iron dissolved into a liquor. Therefore proceed to distillation, that there may be a separation, and distill it in an earthen vessel in a strong fire, increasing the fire as much as you can, and receive the oil, or soul, or red tincture of Mars separated from the remaining feces by the nose of the limbec, which oil is the most permanent tincture for colouring sulphurs for the red work, or for exaltation of all elixirs in colour, for it makes it tinge and colour higher. When you have thus prepared the tincture, then proceed to conjunction, and work with the salt before reserved, taking 3 or 4 ounces of the salt, and equal weight of the soul. Then seal it up and set it to purify in balneo, and keep it there till it pass through all colours and be white, and then it is sulphur of nature. Then take out your glass and set it in ashes in a greater degree of heat till it be red, then dissolve the red sulphur with its own soul, and again dissolve and fix it, dissolving it in balneo, and fixing it under the fire, and so it is prepared for fermentation. The fermentation is, as hath often been spoken of before, with the resolved oil of the sulphur of gold in a 4-fold proportion to the medicine, that by the addition of the ferment, it may be made elixir transmuting all bodies. And note that this elixir of iron excelleth all other elixirs, for it rubifieth more, and tingeth higher, and is better for man's body, for it prevaileth against the spleen, constringeth the belly and cureth wounds, it knitteth broken bones together, and stoppeth the superfluous flux of the courses. Chapter 5. The fourth table of the physical and alchemical tincture out of the red lion and glue of the eagle, drawn out from the author's experience. It is chiefly to be remembered how we first taught you to dissolve antimony without acetum acerrimum, which may be also well done if you dissolve it in our calcinative water, and after that antimony is calcined, which we spoke of in the end of the second book. It is also to be remembered that in the end of the book I spoke of the glue of the eagle in the sixth table of the first book. These being remembered, it is to be understood that we attribute no other beginning to this occultation, except that where before we took the blood of the red lion and the glue of the eagle when they were both destroyed, we now join them sound and not hurt together, that they living may mortify and dissolve themselves, which I have fitly called corporeal matrimony, or the union, for in this wedlock they die together, that they may be vivified in the celestial matrimony. Therefore it is not to be wondered if this table differ from the other, for this pertaineth to the handling of spirits. The other way teacheth the manner of making the elixir of bodies, therefore we now come to demonstrate the foregoing table. Therefore that I may plainly reveal all things unto you, take antimony well ground, 1/2 pound, and as much mercury sublimate, likewise ground, and grind them both together upon a marble, till you cannot know them one from another, then set them in a cold place, that the matter dissolving may drop into a glass set underneath, for when the matters are well mixed together, then say, that they will both shortly be dissolved when the water is perfectly dissolved. It will be of a greenish colour and loathsome smell. Put this water with the thick part with it into a glass, and let it stand the space of 3 days in a fixatory under the fire, and in short time you shall see your dissolvedness of a brownish black colour, and after, that is to say, in the foresaid time it will be red, something higher than red lead. Dissolve this calcined matter in Raymund's calcinative water, and when you have dissolved it all into a red liquor or deep yellow, then is your matter brought well into its chaos. Put this liquor into a fit body with an alembic and receiver, and by distillation separate the red oil or the red mercury from the white body which remaineth in the earth, and if any matter ascend into the head of the alembic, despise it not, but try if it be fixed, and if it be not fixed enough, sublime it till it be fixed. Whereunto join equal weight of its soul, for the celestial matrimony, and always leave out the earth in the bottom if you have any sublimate fixed, if not, take the white earth remaining in the bottom, with which proceed as before is said, and join the white body with the soul. When they are thus joined or married, set them to impregnate and revivify in balneo, till it pass through all colours, and at last be converted into red, which then is the stone. The manner of fermentation, augmentation, both in quantity and quality, and projection, is spoken of before in other works. And thus, sons, brethren and reader, I have delivered and opened, and also have amended many things, all the secrets of the ancient philosophers, whose writings were rather published to conceal the art, than to make it manifest or teach it, although it pleased Hermes Trismegistus, the first writer of this art, both to say and protest that he had never revealed, taught, nor prophesied anything of this art to any, except fearing the day of judgment or the damnation of his soul, for shunning the danger thereof. Even as he received the gift of faith from the author of faith, so he left it to the faithful. Yet when you read his writings, either in his Smaragdine table, or in his Apocalypse, or his 12 golden gates, and shall find nothing plain or manifest, what will you think of such an author? Believe me, all the ancients have concealed the secret of their preparations in the gross work, although they writ most famously of the philosophical operation. Therefore I have used my endeavor to try, for out of their writings I found that the elixir might be made of the planets or metals, and also of mean minerals, which came more near to a metallic nature. Then reading more, I found a certain method amongst them all, as it were with one consent or voice on this wise. First and principally, that bodies should be made incorporeal, that is to say, discorporated, or discompounded, which then is called the Hyle or chaos. Secondly, that out of this chaotical substance, which is one thing, 3 elements, should be separated and purified. Thirdly, that the separated and purified elements should be joined, the man and the woman, the body and the soul, heaven and earth, with infinite other names so called, that the ignorant might think they were diverse, which only were nothing else but water and salt, or the body and spirit or soul, that is to say, white mercury and red, which they joined together that a new and pure body might be created in putrefaction, that a microcosmical infant might be created in imitation of the creation. That is to say, sulfur of nature. Fourthly, that it should be fed with milk, that is to say, with its own proper tincture, and after nourished by fermentation, that it may grow to its perfect strength. Having learned these, I begun to practice, and in the practice of every body and spirit, I found diverse errors, but reading more and trying more, at last I found the manner and true way of dissolving all bodies, separating and conjoining them, finding the composition of their secret of secrets, that is to say, lac virginis or acetum acerrimum, and Raymund's calcining water, wherewith I dissolved all bodies at pleasure, and perfected the gross work, wherefore I purposed, contrary to the custom of the philosophers, to reveal the whole work, lest I being envious, should be the author of error like them. Therefore I have added their works to my own experiments and inventions, which are plainly and truly writ, that the artist need to read no books but mine, for herein is almost all things contained, which are found plainly writ by the philosophers, and also those things which are found true by my own experience. Now you have all things methodically in this art without error, with which by the help of God, you may attain to the end. Alchemy revealeth and openeth unto us 4 other secrets. The first is, the composition of pearls, far greater and fairer than natural ones, which cannot be perfectly done without the help of the elixir. The second is the manner of making precious stones of ignoble ones, by the same art which we taught before in malleable glass. The third is the manner of making artificial carbuncles in imitation of natural ones, which few or none have spoken of. The fourth is the manner of making mineral amber, of which Paracelsus hath only writ in his book of Vexations of Philosophers, and in the last edition of his works in the 6 of his Archidoxes, but because they cannot be made without the help of the elixirs, therefore they deserve a place amongst the elixirs of the fourth, that is to say, of the virtue or rather the vice of making amber. I shall handle it coldly. I have reserved the explanation of this enigma, till the last place, wherefore it is said, that the elixir is perfected in the decimal number. Chapter 6. The 5th Table, of Making of Pearls. This table of making pearls, consisteth of these parts, that is to say, lac virginis, virgin's milk, dissolved pearls, quicksilver, and the white elixir. Take lac virginis, or acetum acerrimum, so much as you think sufficient for dissolving the pearls, as in double proportion to the pearls, as if there be 3 ounces of the pearls, let there be 6 ounces of lac virginis, wherein dissolve the pearls, and set the glass in balneo to disgust the space of a day, then pour out the solution, and distill it in balneo, and in the bottom of the glass you shall find the thick oil of the pearls, whereunto add so much of your white corporeal elixir as sufficeth to make the matter like paste, and put thereto equal weight of the pearls of quicksilver. If the matter be too thin, put more powder of the elixir. If it be too thick, add more lac virginis or quicksilver, till it be like liver. Grind this mass upon a stone till it be brought to a fit thickness. Then make it up in what form you please. Therefore it is necessary that you have a pair of brass or iron molds in readiness, but it would be better they were of silver, of what form you will, and fill them with this matter while it is soft, then pierce them through with a needle, or such like thing, and put as many of these in a glass as you will, but first hang them upon a thread, and close well the glass, and bury it with the pearls therein 2 foot under the earth, and let it stand there the space of 6 months till they be congealed with the cold into a shining and clear substance like natural margarites. These pearls made and compounded in this manner, are no less than natural ones, but much greater and more excellent by reason of the white elixir. Chapter 7. The 6th Table of the Magistery of Carbuncles. We now come to speak of carbuncles, which have their birth or original in the pits, and golden mines of the earth, of the spirit of gold and mineral salt endurated and corporeal, being decocted and disgusted into the hardness of stone by the archaeus of nature, as well by the heat of the climate, as by the great heat of the sun, for they arise from the spirit of the miner of sol or gold under the earth, by whose influence they shine, as also from the hard mineral salt, by the mixture of which they are hardened into the nature of stone, whence the philosopher intendeth and endeavoureth as near as he can to imitate nature by art, and to make and compound artificial carbuncles above the earth, with the same materials which nature formeth them of under the earth, therefore he useth the same principles, operating with the spirit and soul of sol undivided, and the most hard salt of the earth, whereof Venice glass is made. Which 2 are the material organs for manuals. 3 things are required, that is to say, a glass maker, furnace, a flaming fire, and a crucible. We now come to the materials, which are 2, and are to be joined together. The first giveth the form, the other receiveth it. That which giveth the form is the spirit and soul of sol or gold joined together in the red elixir, and is the agent, as it were the man. That which receiveth the form, is the hardest salt of the earth contained in glass, and is the patient, as it were the woman. The agent is the power of heaven impregnating the earth, the patient is the power of the earth, retaining the impression of the heaven. Having thus demonstrated the theory, we now lay the foundation of the practice, which are 2, whereof the first is the preparation on the elixir, the other of the glass. Therefore your red corporeal elixir is to be dissolved with the oil or tincture of Mars of iron, because it hath the greatest virtue above all other bodies, by whose celestial power the earth, that is to say the glass, is brought to the hardness of stone, and converted into a stone, and so the elixir is prepared for projection upon glass. But for the preparation of glass there is no more required but that it be made of the same matter that Venice glass is made of, the composition of which if you know not, take as much Venice glass as you please, and weigh it exactly, upon which project your elixir. When you have so done, put your glass in the crucible to melt, and when it is well molten, then take your corporeal red elixir dissolved as before, or if you will, undissolved, as much as sufficeth to tinge the molten glass, and put it tied up in a paper into the crucible upon the molten glass, stirring it a little with a rod, and there let it stand the space of 1 hour. Then take out the crucible, and pour the matter into an ingot, and it will be malleable, but as hard as glass, and stone-like to the sight, and you may either cut it like a stone, or work it with a hammer. This carbuncle stone or metal hath the property of a carbuncle in shining and glistering above all natural carbuncles, and if it touch a toad or spider, they presently die, because it taketh virtue from the elixir against all poison. And if the sick carry this carbuncle about him, so that it doth touch the region of his heart, it takes away the cardiac passions, and diminisheth the strength of the disease. Chapter 8. The 7th Table denoting the composition of mineral electrum or amber, as well natural as artificial, and also speaketh of a bell made of amber used by Tritemius. Having finished these 2 secrets, we now come to the electrum. But whether it is to be reckoned amongst stones, or amongst bodies, it may be doubted, because in the West Indies it is found writ in the Spanish decades of the virtue thereof. It is affirmed to be the greatest antidote against all poison, and far more noble than gold. But if it be a metal, it must necessarily be the chief and supreme of all metals, for other metals have their original from sulphur and mercury. But this metal consisteth of 7 metals, and is the best of all those which grow in the archaeas of the earth. For where gold is taken for the most noble of all metals by reason of its perfect digestion and colour, this hath a greater degree of digestion and colour, having a higher colour, that is to say, clear red, approaching nearer to the true colour of the sun. For as gold is the sun of other metals, so this electrum is to gold as the heaven to the sun, wherein nature as it were in heaven hath created certain stars shining with clear beams of a silverish colour, showing plain to the eye that it consisteth of red and white metals mixed in the highest degree of digestion. On the contrary, it may be objected, Ob. 1. That there are only 6 metallic bodies, amongst which this is found to be none, therefore it is rather a spirit than a body. Also thus. Ob. 2. The minna of every body or metal is converted into metal by fusion, but the minna of electrum in melting always remaineth, therefore it is no metal. Otherwise thus. Ob. 3. There is nothing generated in the earth but stones, spirits, metals, or mean minerals, but electrum is none of these, therefore it seems to be no mineral. 1. To the first objection it is thus answered. We say, that it is not apparent out of the books of any of the antient philosophers, that they ever dreamed of this natural and mineral electrum. But more to the purpose, those are called spirits, which fly from the fire, but the electrum dieth not from the fire, therefore it is no spirit, is quicksilver and the rest, and also mean minerals. 2. We now come to the next. We grant what the minna of every metal is converted in that metal by the fire, which consists of mercury and sulfur. This axiom is evident in those metals which are imperfect, and fly from the fire either in their minna or in themselves, after they reduced into metal, and also the gold minor, although before melting it fly from the fire, before the gold be molten and converted into metal, yet because gold never flieth after it be molten, but is found fixed in all probation, therefore it is accounted the worthiest of all metals which consist of sulfur and mercury. 3. Now to the third, I say, that I think it rather is of a stony and metallic nature joined together, by which mixture it differs from a stone, and also from metal, but because it consisteth of mercury, earthly salt and sulfur mixed, therefore it gets unto it a mixed nature of them, so that it is half stone, half metal. Wherefore it is to be judged that it consisteth of 3 natures mixed together, that is to say mineral, metallic, and stony, and is the best of all those which grow in the archaeas of the earth, for it exceeds mean minerals in fixation and constancy, because they pass away in fume by long melting, and vanish to nothing, or else they melt easily in moisture, as salts, and sea. But this electrum or amber remaineth fixed and constant as well in the fire as water. It exceeds metals in digestion, color and dignity. In digestion, because it is endued with the sign of greater and more perfect digestion, for as gold is more yellow by reason of his greater heat and more perfect digestion, so this electrum, because it hath a higher color than gold hath, therefore it is more digested in color, for as gold exceeds other metals in color, so electrum exceeds gold, for gold is yellow, but electrum red, which is a higher color than yellow. And as silver is the luna of white metals, so gold is the sol of red metals, so electrum is to gold, as the heaven is to sol in dignity or value, for by how much gold is more noble than silver, so much this electrum is more noble than gold. Lastly, it excels stones in shining, and virtue. In shining, because they shine by reason of their hardness, so this electrum showeth many sparks, not by reason of its hardness, but by reason of his completeness. And as the heaven is adorned with stars, so this electrum with sparking, because it hath the clearness and brightness of all metals. And as the heaven containeth all the stars and planets, so this electrum, which is the heaven of metals, containeth the sun and moon, and the rest of the planets in itself, gold and silver as it were the greater luminaries, the other bodies or metals as the rest of the planets, mean minerals as stars in virtue. For although many stones have singular properties and virtues, so that some help the sight, others the spleen, some the heart, some stop blood, some hinder abortiveness, some hasten childbirth, some resist poison, yet there is no one found which takes away all infirmities, as electrum doth, more than all mean minerals, metals or stones, according to his threefold conjunction, that is to say, mineral, metallic, and lapidific. Therefore whatsoever others please to think of this natural electrum, this seemeth most probable to me, that it is not simply a metal, but of a nature exceeding metal, for whereas stones, mean minerals and metals are generated of salt, sulfur and mercury, this electrum takes his original from stones, minerals and metals, from stones it takes salt, from minerals mercury, from metals sulfur. These 3 being brought into one by the archaeas of natute, are its elements, from a greater virtue and power of nature, which elements have formed a higher degree of perfection than in any other stone, mineral or metal, as it were by the commandment of God nature should ascribe a crown of virtue and dignity above all minerals. But however it be, it is taken 2 manner of ways amongst the later magicians and alchemists, that is to say, that which is made naturally, and artificially. Naturally is that which groweth in the natural archaeas of the earth, the artificial is that which is made by art above the earth in imitation of nature. Whence Paracelsus, a worthy master in magic, seeing fully the nature of it, and the utility of alchemy, commanding to make the elixir thereof when as its natural body cannot be had, in his book of the Vexations of Philosophers, and the 6th of his magical archidoxes, teacheth to compound an artificial electrum, that the elixir must be made thereof, as appears more at large in the said books, which I like not at all. He teacheth how to make the elixir out of electrum, I contrarily. The electrum out of the elixir, he would make the elixir of the virtue of the electrum, and I the electrum of the virtue of the elixir. I leave his way to his own followers, but I desire mine not to weary and vex themselves in such a weak, but a more strong principle. I make 2 kinds of electrum one way, the first whereof is spiritual, the other corporeal. First of the former, after you have made your red, corporeal elixir by projection, in the same crucible melt 1 ounce of lead, and likewise another of tin, and when they are hot, take the crucible from the fire, and pour therein 1 ounce of silver melted in another crucible, and when these 3 white metals begin to be cold, take 2 ounces of mercury well purged, and put those 2 ounces of quicksilver upon the molten metal by drops, then increase the fire gently, that too much of the mercury do not fume away. Then in 3 other several crucibles melt iron, copper, and gold, of each 1 ounce, which you must have in readiness molten. And first, put your molten gold into the crucible, where your 4 white metals stand molten, and pour it upon them, then your copper, and last of all your iron, stirring the whole mass with a stick, that it may mix together, and let it stand in a melting heat the space of an hour, then take all out that is melted in the crucible, and consider well the weight of it, and according to the goodness of your elixir, make projection for medicine. And thus you have created and compounded spiritual electrum of the weight of 7 ounces, consisting of 7 metals, which metals so converted into medicine, will be the elixir of electrum, and an universal medicine, for you need not after regard upon what body, or metal, you project it. It is also the chiefest medicine for man's body, for although 3 or 4 of all the diseases of the microcosm were united together, yet they may be cured with this one medicine. If you dissolve part of this in spirit of wine, and distill away the same spirit in balneo, and the oil of the medicine or elixir remain in the bottom, as is taught in the 2nd book, you shall have the chiefest medicine of life, and most noble aurum potabile. Note that if your iron melt not well, then dissolve your electrum in the oil or tincture of Mars, dissolving and congealing until it have imbibed a sufficient quantity. But if you desire to make corporeal electrum, when your medicine beginneth to fail to convert metals any more into medicine, then in like manner project your medicine upon your melted metals or bodies, and they will be converted into corporeal electrum metallic and malleable, of the virtue of which as I do endeavour to write nothing, so also of its vice, or rather of the viciousness of those that abuse it, I will touch a little sparingly. Paracelsus writeth, that Virgil Hispanus and Trithemius made a diabolical bell of this artificial electrum, upon which when they would invocate spirits, which they called by a more decent name of intelligences, they writ the character of what spirit they desired, and at the 3rd ring of the bell the spirits obeyed their desires so long as they desired to talk with them, and when they would talk no more, they hid the character, and by the reverse ringing of the bell the spirits departed. He that will forsake God, and require knowledge, aid and assistance from the devil, let him share with Arbucel, and with him descend to the infernal lake. But we that are true magicians, or rather philosophers, confiding in God the Father, and the Holy Trinity, approving of natural and lawful magic or true philosophy, but accounting the supernatural altogether infamous and unlawful. And we require the doctrine and wisdom of divine goodness, and the Holy Spirit, to whom be honour and glory for evermore. Amen. Chap. 9. The 8th table, which explaineth the meaning of the philosophers when they speak of the 10th number wherein the elixir is finished, and also showeth the wonderful secret of the animal stone, out of George Ripley, with 2 other of his works. We now come to the last chapter of this book, wherein is declared what the philosophers mean when they bid us finish the work in the 10th number. It is to be understood that as out of the hyle or chaos 4 are divided, so out of the hyle or chaos of metals. Because metals or bodies when they are dissolved into liquor, then they are contained in the 1st or 1 number, which is the solution of the body, of which by distillation is made 2, that is to say, heaven and earth, the menstruum and salt, that which remaineth in the bottom is the earth or salt, that which is distilled over is the menstruum and heaven. And so you have 1, 2. When the menstruum is separated, it is divided into 3, that is to say, into water, air, and fire, yet it is to be noted, that the air, which is the first part of the water containing an airy disposition, although it be in the form of water, yet it is reputed air, by reason of the consimilitude of the quality, and after its perfect rectification, it is a tinging mercury, and the white spirit of metals. In like manner is to be considered of the oil, which although it is not in the form of fire, but a liquor, yet by reason of its ardent heat, it is called fire, and the soul or red tinging mercury. And so there is 1, 2, 3. When there is a conjunction of these 3, that is to say, the air and water with its salt or earth, in putrefaction, these 3 are united into one quintessence, and are made a new body, in which 3 are united in one sulphur, which sulphur is the true philosopher's mercury, and in making this white sulphur, you have once turned the philosopher's wheel. But that the work may be perfected in the 10th number, if you add the fire which is the 4th element, to these 3 concluded in the foresaid unity, and rubified, then if these 4 in a new conjunction be purified in a lent fire of ashes, then it is the stone, for in this work it changeth colours again, and is converted into a red stone, and by this means you have joined 4 into 1, that is to say, 1, 2, 3, 4. Make 10, and so the stone is finished in the 10th number, because you have turned the philosopher's wheel twice, as Ripley witnesseth thus. But yet again 2 times turn about the wheel. The stone is to be dissolved again with the fire, or soul, or tincture, and dried again until it pierce and flow, then it is to be fermented into elixir with the oil of the luminary, and so you have turned the philosopher's wheel again, which is then called the medicine of the 3rd order. Of the solution of this, Ripley hath writ these verses, teaching the resolution of the white and red stone before it be transmuting elixir, calling them his bases, saying, Do as I bid thee, then dissolve these foresaid bases witty, and turn them into perfect oils with our true water ardent. By circulation that must be done, according to our intent. These oils will fix crude mercury, and convert bodies all into perfect sol and lunar when thou shalt make projection. That holy substance pure and fixed Raymund Lully did call his basilisk, of which he never made so plain detection. By which verses it plainly appeareth, his bases were only 2 sulphurs, or 2 stones, which in another place he called his minera, and these minera ought to be dissolved by his ardent water, by circulation of the oil or soul upon the sulphur, until it become a stone, for in this place he takes both the spirit, and the soul for the ardent water, willing that the spirit and soul be administered according to their tinging natures, for the resolution of the proper basis. And thus have you the words of this enigma explained of the 10th number, which seeing it is the end of the art, I have reserved it till the end. It now remaineth that we reveal one secret of Ripley, which was never spoken of by any philosopher, that is to say, the manner of making the sulphur of nature out of the minna of the microcosm, which is man's blood, of which he writ the whole practice in his book of the 12 Gates, but most chiefly in his medulla, where he teacheth its preparation and work more plainly. And because I have proved it to be true, therefore I tell it more confidently, because I desire to write nothing of my own fancy, but that which I have first proved. Hearken almost the last verses which he writ in his 12 Gates. 1. I never saw true work truly but one, of which in this treatise the truth I have told. Study only therefore how to make our stone, for thereby mayst thou win both silver and gold. Upon my writing therefore to ground thee be bold, so shalt thou lose naught, if God be thy guide. Trust to my doctrine, and thereby abide. 2. Remember that man is most noble creature, of earthly composition that ever God wrought, in whom is the 4 elements proportioned by nature. A natural mercuriality which costeth right naught. Out of his minna by art it is brought. For our metals be naught else but our minera too. Of sun and moon, wisely Raymund said so. The clearness of the moon and of the sun so bright, in these 2 minera descendeth secretly. Howbeit the clearness is hid from thy sight. By craft thou shalt make it appear openly. This hid stone, this one thing therefore putrefy. Wash him in his own broth till white he become. Then ferment him wittily. Lo, here is all and some. Out of these only words there are 2 points observed, whereunto the author steereth. The first is, that man's blood be put to putrefaction, that sulphur may be made thereof. The second is, that it be fermented wittily, as if he should say, the artist should prepare it, that it may be fit for fermentation. Thus far of the theory. Now we come to declare the practice out of Ripley's medulla. Take man's blood drawn out of the vein in March, and of a martial man the author meaneth, as I think, of a choleric complexion, and when the blood is drawn out of the vein, let it cool, that the green water may be drawn from it, which is saltish, for as long as that saltish water remaineth with the blood, it will not let it putrefy, because the water preserveth the blood from putrefaction while it is in a man's body. When it is thus prepared, put it in an egg glass well closed, and set it in balneo to purify. In 40 days or less it will be black, and so go on till it be white. When you have your white sulphur, divide it into 2 parts, and keep one for the white stone, and rubify the other for the red work. And so you have 2 minera, of which it is said, for our metals be naught else but our minera too. Of sun and moon, wisely Raymund said so. And so to the end of the verses as before. Yet here it is to be understood, that the philosopher's sulphur is not mineral or metallic sulphur, from which metals grow under the earth, but it is a purified sulphur drawn out of metals made by art above the earth, out of which and the mercury of the body the stone ariseth. For believe me, I had never write anything of this art, except I had seen the sulphur of the microcosm, and the perfect solution of other bodies and sulphurs. Now have you prepared your sulphur out of the minor of the microcosm. If you be a philosopher, proceed to the end, and conclude your work in the 10th number. If not, you are not born to our philosophy. Therefore give the sulphur mercury, that the work may be complete. I believe there lieth not any secret in the chemical art, which thou hast not truly declared and plainly taught. But to the end that these things which we have spoken may be more surely committed to memory, we will repeat the general process of the parts as it is described in the beginning of this 3rd book. And because there is not one, but diverse handling of the bodies, therefore the table is divided into 3 parts, the middle whereof describeth the process of imperfect bodies to the stone, the other 2 teach the preparation of perfect metals for fermentation of the stone of imperfect bodies. The manner of preparing imperfect bodies. Calcination of the body. Solution of the body into hyle. Separation by distillation. Conjunction of the separated. Putrefaction of the conjoined. Sulphur by putrefaction to the stone. Fermentation of the stone to the elixir. Augmentation of the elixir. Projection of the elixir. Some make 12 parts, as Ripley and others, who call them 12 gates, but because 3 other degrees are contained in these, it would be ridiculous to repeat them, and because the way of both ferments, whether white or red, is the same. The table of fermentation. Calcination. Solution. Putrefaction. Sulphur. Solution of the sulphur. Red ferment. Aurum potabile. Quintessence. Elixir vitae. So likewise it is said of silver when it is prepared. White ferment. Argentum potabile. Quintessence. White elixir of life. Now the radiant sun of the philosophers ariseth, which will drive away the dark chimeras, and disperse the black clouds. Here the enigmas are opened, thistles and thorns are cut up and burned. Now reader, mayest thou safely walk in the philosopher's gardens, and gather most wholesome fruit. Here grow most fragrant roses both white and red. Here grow vines bearing full grapes, of which is made the wholesome nectar. Here are found trees of health and wealth, trees of the sun and of the moon. Here spring 2 cool fountains of sciences and knowledge sliding artificially through the garden upon the most precious gems, and silver and golden sands. Thou hast one field of paradise given thee from God, that during the life of his elect they may be kept in health, free from all sickness. Here the corrupt nature puts on an incorrupt nature. Here impure things are turned into pure things. Here are all diseases lost, and health increaseth. Here the perfect unity and harmony of body dwell, and here is also all the most excellent treasures. Therefore let us always praise God for his gifts, let us worship him, obey him, love him, and beseech him to establish his grace upon us, and conduct us to eternity through all his ways of goodness, knowledge and faith, to life eternal. Amen.